Fam, what's going on? Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys being here. Good morning. What's going on? Angel, you are first. Corey, what's going on? 8:30, we got a guest coming on. 9, we got a guest coming on. So I appreciate you guys being here and getting checked in. And if you guys want to call in, I'll open up the call-in line number so you guys can call in right here on Bama Football on YouTube at 205-850-1994. Hope everybody is off to an amazing start. Hope you guys are enjoying this beautiful Tuesday. We had Mother's Day on Sunday, moving towards the middle of May, which is amazing. Yesterday, Angel said that Wisconsin, the Alabama game, now on the far horizon, but the kickoff time will be 11 a.m. Okay, so we have 2 kickoff times for Alabama. 11 a.m. Nobody likes 11 a.m. games. We just don't like those in college football, but it is what it is. It'll be on Fox. It'll be the biggest thing that hit Camp Randall in quite some time, and the Alabama Crimson Tide's first challenge of the 2024 season going into Camp Randall. Of course, that's rat poison because you have 2 other games before that. Then you have your kickoff against Georgia, which will be at 6:30 at Bryant-Denny Stadium, the college football early Super Bowl, so can't wait for that. What's going on, Kevin? I appreciate you joining us. We got 32 people in. Let's get 32 thumbs up right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Yeah, when I think, kind of talking about different topics of the show, continue to roll in the topics. So I'm going to open up the first couple of minutes asking you for what you want to talk about during the middle of May. So go ahead and post your topics. Anything's on your mind kind of relating to Alabama football or college football in general, we definitely will bring that to you guys. Today on the show, we are going to have 2 guests, and then we'll have Ty later on in the show as well, coming in. And what's up, Caitlin? I see you just checking in the comment box. I know you've been under the weather a little bit, so I hope you are feeling better. Today, some of the topics that we talked about from yesterday, offensive line depth. And these were some topics that were brought up by you Undefeated right here on Bama Football on YouTube yesterday. So if you want to add more comments, let's continue to add more comments as we kind of cruise through the summertime. We got defensive expectations. We got team meshing and chemistry, the impact of Ryan Williams, and wide receiver depth. So like Rodney says, get the thumbs up, and I appreciate you guys. We got a call already, and let's start the day off with Chris calling in from New Jersey. Chris, what's up, man? I appreciate you starting the day right here on Bama Football on YouTube. What's on your mind, man? Welcome to the Tuesday live show right here on Bama Football on YouTube.
Kyle, how are you, my friend?
I am doing amazing.
I'm going to. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's beautiful here too. Believe it or not.
Yeah, I got it.
I'm going away for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get a quick call in and for a quick chit chat. I'm heading to California. But never call me Chris from California, please, Kyle. Never. So I know these are great topics, but I got to tell you, there's one topic that I think I want to just cover you real quick. I'll let you go, and then I'll talk to you in a week. And if somehow, and I don't think they're going to get it, I think we got to monitor this on the channel, and we can do it all summer. And I'm not a bettor, but the betting, the early betting odds for Alabama.
I like it.
They do not understand the DeBoer offense. They do not understand this coaching staff. They think there's, so underestimating. Why not we can make a few bucks, Kyle. Pay for my ticket to Georgia. But so I think we should monitor this and look to see where the spreads are going between now and like the beginning of the season. And then my guess is, and I guess it'll be a fun exercise. But my guess is, Kyle, that let's face it, nobody wins but Vegas. The house always wins. And my guess is, by the time the season starts, or 1 game or 2 games in, they'll adjust those spreads. Yeah, because they're not dumb. But you never know. Hey, Kyle, I'll tell you the reason why I don't bet. There was I worked with a group of guys on Wall Street, and they were all bettors, and so I kind of got forced into being a bettor for a little period of time. And one year, when because I went to Rutgers, one year Rutgers was the best bet of the entire year. It was like the first year of like Ray Rice, and Rutgers were like 10-point underdogs, 12-point underdogs, and they were covering every game and winning some of the games. Yeah. Remember they beat the number 2 team in the nation at, on that Thursday game, and it was like the game of the year. and I won. I bet money, and then every week I was like rolling it, and it was becoming like a lot of money, right? And like but I never really thought of it as money because I was like, hey, I didn't put any money up, and I'm just rolling it and rolling it. And so at the end of the season, Kyle, and this is why I don't bet, Kyle. At the end of the season, I had all this money in this betting account, and the guy that I was that kind of pushed me into betting, he was a very smart guy, went to Cornell, was the worst bettor on the planet. Could tell you all the reasons why a team was going to win and it would lose. And and so he told me the bet of the year was taking USC in the national championship over Texas, Vince Young.
Wow.
And I go, oh, man. And so I put all the money on that game that I spent all the whole season winning on Rutgers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, they were like, we're going to go out to a bar in New York and watch the game. I was like, no, I got to go home and watch it alone. So I'm watching it. And when every time they show that highlight of Vince Young running in the Super Bowl, it's a dagger to me because I lost all my betting money. And after that, I haven't bet a dime since then, Kyle. But let me tell you something. If these guys are silly enough to leave these spreads where they are and they're doubting Alabama this much, I mean, why not? Let's make some money, kids.
Well, I mean, even when you look at the overall value for like Jalen Milroe right now, I think on Vegas Insider, the odds for him to win the Heisman Trophy is like plus 1,800, which I think is a lot of value right there in terms of what he brings to the table. Whether you like Jalen Milroe as a quarterback or not, like if you like odds and you like value, then plus 1,800, on Jalen Milroe is something that you look at. I think odds when you look kind of far out, you look at the game against Oklahoma. I mean, Alabama just favored by a point. I like that. The game against LSU, I think Alabama's a 1-point underdog like that, even though it's on the road. 4 points, that Georgia's a favorite at Bryant-Denny Stadium.
What's the Wisconsin game, Kyle?
Yeah.
Kyle,
That's Wisconsin? A touchdown. That's a touchdown. Yeah, 7, right?
Come on, get out of here. We got to take that, Kyle. That's 11 o'clock. They're desperate with this 11 o'clock time, Kyle.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to say it right now, Kyle. You and I talk all the time. If it's plus 1,800, I'm putting some form of money on Jalen Milroe to win the Heisman. That 18-1. Come on, man.
No. I might be with you too. So, I mean, if it stays like that, and it's only going to go low. I mean, this is the biggest value that you get right now. So, plus 1,800, whatever it's going to be. I mean, but yeah, I think you're right on that. Any where are you going? Where are you going in California?
So my brother-in-law is your age. He's a great guy. He's a sports writer.
Oh wow!
I get a lot of good info from him. He writes for I guess but there's a company that's 90 Min, and then and then it's another company, and then they also bought one of the betting companies. Oh, you know what they did? They actually just bought Sports Illustrated. So he had an article in Sports Illustrated, so that was his dream to even though Sports Illustrated is kind of a shell of itself.
Sure.
So he wanted 5 years ago. He wanted to go to the wine country in California.
Yeah.
And I've never been to Sonoma. I've never been to the Sonoma side.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to go back and forth and we're going to go out for a few days. And there's 4 couples and we rented a house. By the way, if anybody goes out to the wine country, the hotels are outrageous in price, Kyle. But if you can rent a house, it's so much more affordable.
Yeah. Huh.
So we rented a house, and then we're gonna go we'll do some wine tasting, and I'll be back on Sunday. But I haven't had a vacation in a while, so we're everybody in my family is we're pretty excited. So. But I said I'm bringing my computer. I got to check in on Kyle and see what's going on over there.
Yeah.
And
enjoy it.
And one last thing. Oh yeah. So I'm excited. So and I've never been to Sonoma.
Mm-hmm.
I love your 2 things. I love your that hard hat update. That was good. And listen, I feel badly for that Ajay Hall. Sometimes these kids even going for bags. Some of these kids, the grass isn't greener, man. Sometimes, and what was the guy who had the great touchdown in the national? Billingsley?
Jaleel Billingsley. Jaleel Billingsley,
man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If he didn't leave, he'd be in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I mean, I don't want to. Let's not go down that road. Let's keep this to positive wine tasting, Kyle. So have you been up to the wine country? I'm guessing.
The last time I was in Northern California was for the national championship when Alabama played Clemson and lost to Clemson. There was a couple people that did go to wine country. I did not. I've been to San Francisco. I've been to Sacramento numerous times, but I've never kind of ventured out to wine country. That's something that I would definitely like to do. But I know there was some beat writers that went out there and kind of made time to go out there. I at that particular time when I went there, I went into Metro San Francisco and I went to the Museum of Fine Art and I did a couple other things. And then I got food poisoning, which was like, I mean, it was unbelievable. So I took the train from Santa Clara to San Francisco. It was like, I don't know, like an hour train ride. And got hit hard. But I definitely would like to check it out. Anytime. What I do really like about Northern California is going up to the Redwoods. So just outside of San Francisco, or if you go on the other side of San Francisco, there's some great beaches and the Redwoods aren't really far. But what I understand is the further up you go, like kind of towards Oregon, the bigger that the Redwoods and the sequoias get. So definitely like to check that out. But like if you're familiar with that area, if you've ever been to like Stinson Beach, Stinson Beach is right on top of San Francisco. So when you're going over like Sausalito Island, back to the left is Stinson Beach, kind of in that route. And man, it's amazing. It's just the most beautiful thing. One of the most beautiful beaches.
My wife's company's based out there. She works for Gilead. Gilead Sciences. So, I got to, it's a shame, Kyle. I've watched San Francisco over the last, 10,
it's terrible.
years.
It's terrible.
It's really, it's a crying shame.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
I'm flying. So, for the first time ever, I'm flying to Sacramento. I'm not going anywhere near San Fran.
Yeah, I don't blame
Sacramento,
you. Yeah.
And I'm going to take an Uber. I'm not even going to rent a car. We're going to take an Uber.
Yeah.
And because wine tasting and DWs out there are scary. So, but yeah, I'll give you the full rundown when I get back. I wanted to check in and like I said, I'm excited. This is something we got to definitely put on the radar screen with the betting with these odds because why not? If it's free money, so I got to pay for my Georgia ticket, Kyle, somehow.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate you leading off the show, man. Safe travels, Chris, and maybe we'll talk to you from Wine Country, Kyle. Man. All right, man. Take it easy. Roll Tide to you, man.
Thanks, brother.
All right, man. That's Chris calling out from New Jersey. Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys being here, all 57 of you. On May 14th, we got T up in the house. People have been asking, where's T? You okay?
I am. Good morning, Undefeated. It's been a minute.
Yeah, appreciate you being here. T is always here. T's always in the background, some shape or form. So we appreciate you being here. T, have you been to wine country?
I have not. I would love to go. My mom has been quite a bit. She loves it. She said she wants her ashes spread there. So.
Whoa, really? In wine country, is that allowed?
Yeah, I don't know.
Huh?
I'm sure it's been done.
I'm sure it has, huh? The only wine country that I kind of been to, if you've been to Southern California, is Temecula. So Temecula, close to the San Diego area, they also have, some wine down there. And, it's a little bit drier than I would assume Northern California. But Temecula, went out there for a wedding and toured some facilities out there. It was really nice.
Well, my brother used to live in Santa Barbara, and he had a bunch of grapevines on his property.
Mm-hmm.
It was really cool.
Huh? Did you ever have the experience of stepping on them barefoot?
No.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people like to do. DD with the super chat early on. Love the potential of the offense, but the defense still wins championships. Yeah, I think in Angel, we got Angel from Pigeon Forge, and we'll add you in just a second. I think when you look to this third point right here about defensive expectations for the Alabama Crimson Tide, I think you can look at the defensive expectations, and if you really want to play devil's advocate, I think you can really attack the defense this year. So I think if you're a non-Alabama football fan, you're attacking Alabama's defense because of the fact that Coach Saban is no longer the head football coach. You no longer have Kevin Steele. You have Kane Womack, who's unproven in the Power 5 level. You have all these new coaches and everything new to the defense. So let's just kind of step out and act like we're not Alabama fans right here. So if you look to Alabama's defense, I'm probably saying that I wasn't impressed with what Alabama has in terms of the spring game. I'm attacking their corners. I don't believe in Deshaun Jones. I'm attacking Damani Jackson. There's only one returner in the secondary. You do have inside linebackers, but I think, you have unproven edge rushers. And I think that, you probably would assume, because you don't know about Alabama and how good their defensive line is going to be. And I think compounded onto that, I think that the mentality of non-Alabama football fans is that Alabama is going to have a high potent offense and kind of forget about their defense a little bit. So I think the defensive expectations, it's a really good question to ask about and to kind of dig into. And we're only going to find out how good this defense is as we move forward in time, because right now all we can see is who's, hypothetically at the starting positions, which I think we have a really good idea of who's going to be the starters in the first set. But I think that overall, you could definitely pick at the defense, and the defense will be challenged. I think Wisconsin will be a lot better than people anticipate, although I do see Alabama winning by more than a touchdown. And I think Georgia comes in here and, tries to prove, that they are still the team in the SEC, even though Alabama did win the SEC championship last year. And I think on that back end schedule, I think that, when you say that, I think USC, no defense. Efron, what's up, man? I see you inside the comment box. I appreciate you being here. But I think that, that's probably how people view Alabama now under Coach Kalen DeBoer. The thing is that Coach Kalen DeBoer didn't retain any defensive coaches from his Washington squad, right? But I think that's kind of how people view Alabama. And look, that is how the game is kind of morphed into, these days in terms of being, you got to score points. You got to score a lot of points. And does the defense take kind of a second fiddle? I mean, we looked at what Coach Saban said about the NFL draft when he was up there on the podium crushing it. He said that, defense, all the good players play on offense. So I don't know. I mean, I felt that the defense, exactly. Glenn is exactly right. It's became grass basketball. So is Alabama going to join grass basketball? Well, you have to adapt or you die. So, maybe Alabama found their coach that has adapted towards grass basketball. And I think with the offensive set, I mean, let me ask you this. Are you going to be upset if Alabama beats, let's say, Tennessee, let's just throw a number out here, 49 to 35? I don't think so. I think he'll be happy with however Alabama wins, right? And there's been games in the past where it has been shootouts, but you get out of those games, and if you win, you're happy. Kevin says, Kyle, we can't see the fifth bullet point hidden behind this. Yeah, you are right. So the fifth banner is just wide receiver depth, and there's a lot of wide receiver depth. I think when you talk about the wide receivers, you get caught in just talking about Jeremy Bernard. You get caught about talking about Kendrick Law. You get caught about talking about Kobe Prentice. But clearly, there's much more than those at the Alabama wide receiver position, including 3 wide receivers that aren't even here yet. Ryan Williams, Rico Scott, Amari Jefferson, right? There's Emmanuel Henderson, who I think when he gets an opportunity, he will shine. Who we haven't even been talking about recently is Caleb Odom, right? Who switched over from tight end to wide receiver. So you have all these weapons at wide receiver. And I think it is really an area. I mean, you're always going to have a million different wide receivers, right? Cole Adams, right? But you're not going to talk about them because there's only so many that can see the field. But I think overall, that's where the most depth heavy, piece of the unit is for Alabama. Let's go to Angel and Pigeon Forge. It's been a minute. Angel, what's up, man? I appreciate you joining, man. Welcome to the show.
So, yeah. I want to talk real quick about the Wisconsin game because I've seen people online saying, especially these Wisconsin fans, they don't know what they're getting themselves into. And, and I know it's an early game, which is good because I work at night. So it's a good thing they're playing early. But I really think Alabama has too many weapons on the offensive side, especially like Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams. I mean, the way that Jeremy Bernard performed in that game, in the spring game, was phenomenal because, he's a dog. He's hungry. And I believe our defense will be tested a little bit, but not that much. And I do have them Alabama winning by 30. That's just no disrespect to Wisconsin. They don't have the I guess you can say the talent. They're as good as Alabama. I mean, to me, Wisconsin reminds me of Purdue a little bit. Like, they're not good or terrible. They're just, right in the middle. And what's the spread on that game?
On the Wisconsin game, I think Alabama is favored by a touchdown.
That's too low. It's gotta be higher. There are at least 3 touchdowns. Alabama wins, and these big noon kickoff games. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty good for people who have to work at night. So I don't. But I get it though. Like people don't want to see a noon game, but we have to deal with what we got to deal with. You gotta cope with it.
Mm-hmm.
But also, lately, have you seen the Birmingham Stallions?
You can't
crazy. They're
you can't beat them. The Stallions, you can't beat them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the top team in the USFL. I mean, they absolutely crush it.
Yeah.
I know people were upset about Bo Scarborough retiring, but man, that team doesn't lose.
Yeah.
I would assume that they win another championship. So yeah, if you're in the area, in the Birmingham area, you should definitely go check them out. They play at UAB Stadium, which is amazing. They don't lose. I think they're 7-0 at this point in time. So yeah, absolutely crushing it.
Yeah, their quarterback too. He came from Nebraska and Kansas State, right?
No, he was So Adrian Martinez, I loved Adrian Martinez, and I always felt that he has like dual threat ability would somehow shine. Now, when he was at Nebraska, there was kind of like sparks of it, and then when he went to Kansas State, he did a little bit better. So I think he's kind of where he is. Like this is where he is in terms of like his talent max. But yeah, I don't mind him, being the quarterback for the Stallions. I mean, they're absolutely rolling.
That game was great though with the Battlehawks and Agent McCarron. That was a hell of a game.
Yep.
I gotta give them credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
In St. Louis, I mean, the USFL is pretty good. I mean, I know they're not as good as the NFL, bringing in fans and everything, but if they put on a good game for sure, and I think right now it's kind of more competitive than the NFL. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I think that it is fun to watch. I mean, anytime that you do have football during this point in time in May, it's better than the alternate, which is no football. But yeah, the USFL, got a lot of respect for those guys, and like I said, I mean, it's easy to watch. It's football. If you're in the Birmingham area, Tuscaloosa area, it's not hard to get to. And USFL and the Stallions, that's got to be your squad. Anything else? While I got you on the line. Angel?
Yeah. One more thing. Our defense, especially the new additions, I think they're gonna rise to the occasion because they have experience coming from Penn State, sure, Wake Forest, but as long as you can ball and play, it doesn't matter where you came from. Because I've seen all these people were like saying, "Oh, these players are no good. They came from Michigan State and all that, and all these other players." Like, they're hungry. That's why they left that team to go play for Alabama, because I'd rather have dogs that want to work their butt off. And it doesn't matter what school you came from when you first started, because it's called a promotion. So I really don't see that as a negative. But what do you think about that? Like, just our defense additions, they're going to rise to the occasion, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think the focal point right now is clearly the secondary. But if we talk non-secondary, feel good about the linebackers, as we've spoken about. I think the edge rushers will really surprise people. I mean, yesterday we were talking about non-freshman breakout players, and I think Q Robinson is probably a guy to know. Keanu Koo, I think he is a guy to watch. I think when you talk about Alabama's defensive line, who knows how good like an LT Overton is going to be. We know that what returns with a Tim Keenan, but is this going to be the year that the year of the return for like a Jaheim Otis? So I think there's several pieces, and it's fun to talk about the defensive expectations because this is a completely new defensive coaching staff. But you do have a lot of the guys who spot played last year or started. I know it's not so much in the secondary, but man, you're not going to find a better combo in college football than Deontay Lawson and Jahad Campbell. You're just not. Like, that's probably one of the most dangerous inside if not probably the most dangerous inside linebacking tandem in college football.
Yeah, they got the most experience, so I'll be looking forward to that. But anyway, Kyle, I gotta let you go. And thanks for taking my call this morning.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you, Angel. Thanks for calling in, man. Angel calling in from Pigeon Forge. Call line is open, 205-850-1994. Matthew saying, yeah, the inside linebacker is absolutely dogs. Yeah, and I think kind of going with point 2 right here, the team meshing and chemistry, I think that's already come together. And I think a lot of that was because of Coach Kalen DeBoer and the new coaching staff. I mean, this is the first time there was a changing at the guards at the University of Alabama. I think they handled that quite well. Better than I think you could. I think that the transfer portal pieces that they added, it was good. It wasn't overwhelming. You didn't say like 25 transfers coming in and 30 transfers going out. I mean, it kind of was, what it was. And I think they took care of the pieces that they needed. And I think the chemistry will be good because Jalen Milroe is the team leader of this team, and you got Malachi Moore, who's the leader on the defense, along with Deontay Lawson, who's kind of like he kind of leads by example. So I think those guys will have the defensive in check, but it'll be up to that secondary to develop some sort of cohesiveness for the entire secondary because just, one starter returns, and that's fine. I mean, we already know that. Everybody in college football knows that. I can't wait to see like a player like Deshaun Jones. How talented is he going to be, and how is he going to battle with these freshmen? Because I think sometimes we might pencil in starters too early, but I can't imagine that, like a, Zay Mincy or Xavier Brown, that they're getting that they're getting worse by the start of the season. You get what I'm saying? Like, I think those guys will be absolutely ready to go, 1,000,000%. So those are the things that I'm kind of watching with Alabama's defense. But I keep kind of pointing back to like the defensive expectations, because it's always been a staple here at Alabama. But as time changes and college football changes, the focus will be on the offense. The focus will be on the quarterback. The focus will be on how many points Alabama can put up. And that's just the world that we live in. Also, Matthew says, also remember Jerry Rice played at Mississippi Valley State. Yeah, he did. Jerry Rice is from Starkville, Mississippi. His father's, his family, I think they were in the brick industry. So all day long in the summertime, I read this book on Jerry Rice. He would catch bricks. So his father would throw bricks up to him, and that's how he developed his hand strength. So Jerry would be up there just catching bricks, putting them in place, and Starkville. And the thing was about Jerry Rice is he didn't even run the fastest 40 time. It was more about work ethic and being able to understand route concepts and just a strong work ethic. I don't think I mean, you probably label him up there with like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Jerry Rice in terms of the overall work ethic. Chris is just got into Panama City. Great work. Kyle, stay relentless. Absolutely, man. Appreciate you. And Efron, I think you're right, man. Year of the offense, right? You have the year of the lion, the year of the whatever, but this is the year of the offense. And I think if Coach Kalen DeBoer comes in and he develops a good continuity early on with this offense, and they're able to find their identity under Jalen Milroe with Nick Sheridan and Shep, I mean, this could be, an ultra talented offense. Let me ask you this, Undefeated. What is the weak point of Alabama's offense? Like, look at Alabama's offense, everything that we talk about all the time. Where are you attacking? What are you attacking on Alabama's offense? What's their weak point? Everyone's saying the offensive line, okay. And I think, now the argument for Alabama's offensive line would be that you return Parker Brailsford, right? You have Kane Proctor coming back. And the only question mark, I guess, is who's going to be the right tackle, which would be Welcome Formby. You added Geno Vandermark. You have guys like Rock Montgomery, Joseph Ionita, Olas Alanin, right? Guys like that who are there in kind of that second-tier reserve spot. But, yeah, I think you guys might be right. But, let's say that Parker Brailsford comes in and he just has a really good chemistry with Jalen Milroe, and Caden Proctor has shed weight, which it looks like he already has. Alabama's offense could be in really good shape with the offensive line. We went from Alabama just really returning 2 starters in Jaden Roberts to Tyler Booker. But if you zoom out of the guys who really played, you return 4 guys with really good experience. Kane Proctor started every game last season. So did Tyler Booker. So did Parker Brailsford at Washington. Jaden Roberts, I know he didn't start the entire season, but he was a full-fledged starter. So the right tackle position kind of remains the question, but Welcome Formby could bridge that gap in terms of what he lacks in experience. He makes up for with just being ready to take over at that right tackle position. Call-in line is open right now, and the call-in line is 205-850-1994. A lot of people continue to ask about the overall. What's up, James? I see you inside the comment box. Max Tooney, as you pointed out, the offense better be prepared to score some points this year. 100%. Efron is saying spring game defense wasn't challenging, just that simple. Yeah, and I think, like I was saying at the beginning of the show, I think if you're looking, yes. Hold on. Just as I said at the beginning of the show, when you look to Alabama's potential weak spot, if you're looking at places to attack Alabama, you're attacking them on the defensive side, right? I mean, you probably weren't impressed with Alabama's defense, just like all the like if you weren't impressed with Alabama's defense, and I'm not saying it was a complete, lack of effort. There needed to be pieces added to Alabama's defense, period. So that is the weak point that you see from Alabama if you're not an Alabama football fan. Ryan, what's up, man? I see you inside the comment box. It may take a while for the offensive line to gel, but the raw talent is there. Yeah, I mean, and I think with that, as soon as that right tackle starts to fill in, I think those guys will be good. I think that the offensive line should come together faster than the secondary. But I think that the secondary will be tested early because of the opponents that are on the schedule. Like TJ Finn, I don't know how many yards is Western Kentucky, they're going to try to aim for, or South Florida. I think those type of games will actually get them ready for that Georgia game. I would imagine that Wisconsin has more of a balanced attack under Tyler Van Dyke. But I mean, then again, Tyler Van Dyke, he's played in 28 total games. He's thrown for 7,400 yards. Jimmy, what's up, man? Appreciate you being here for the first time. Be sure and hit the subscribe button so you're notified. We also have a call-in line that is always open, which is 205-850-1995, man. So if you want to call in and chat about any of the topics on board, feel free to do so. We appreciate you more than you know right here at Bama Football on YouTube. Coming up at 9 a.m., we got Tony Tsoukalis of Tide Illustrated, part of the Rivals.com network. Tony and I worked together for quite some time. And kind of going forward, I have Tony Tsoukalis, and then tomorrow I have Nick Kelly from the Tuscaloosa News. So Nick Kelly will, be on here. And what I want to do with some of the beat writers, because there's some very talented beat writers, and now the beat writers, kind of like how the YouTube world has morphed, is that a lot of these, we had them at 8:30. Yeah, so maybe shoot them a text. So a lot of these newspapers, what they started, what they're always going to do is focus on the editorial side because they're really talented writers. I used to be a publisher of the Rival site, so I know the editorial side and how much work goes into the written content. But what also happened, and as you guys continue to see, is everybody started building out these YouTube channels because they understood that that was another way to get their word out, to kind of showcase their personalities, to other people, to bring them back to their editorial component. So Tony used to work for me. Then Tony worked for Sports Illustrated, and now Tony works back for Rivals and also helps them on the transfer portal side. So these writers, look, Tuscaloosa, they have some fantastic beat writers. Charlie Potter, right, works for On3. Nick Kelly works for the Tuscaloosa News. Tony Tsoukalis, who works for Rivals, and there's many others. You have the whole AL.com group, and I think with AL.com, it's a polarizing group because I think there's a couple of those guys who really aren't afraid to write hard stories, who aren't afraid to not sugarcoat it. Not to say that all the beat writers do, because the beat writers do a really great job and they continue to grind all the time. But I've continued to see people attack certain people for AL.com, but whatever. My point is, there's some really good writers in this industry, so I want to bring a lot of those guys, and actually and some women as well, like Katie Wyndham, right? T from Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, so I want to have her on as well, and kind of mix and match along with the coaches that we have on here already. So that's kind of the strategy going forward. So and that might be the strategy for other YouTube channels too, right? I think what you see here is kind of what you see kind of in the future. Corey is saying, what is the deal with Tony Mitchell? That situation confused me. I think it confused everybody. What's up, Travis? I see you inside the comment box as well. I think when you talk about Tony Mitchell, he entered the transfer portal, but he has not found a landing spot. Does that mean he could potentially still be with Alabama? I guess so. I think anything is possible with Tony Mitchell at this point in time. Tony Mitchell, if we rewind, he was a 4-star coming out. There was some good hype around him, right? And then he got in some off-the-field situations, some major off-the-field stuff. He was facing years in prison. He was pulled over. Everybody remembers the story. It was actually broadcast out on on YouTube. It got like hundreds of thousands of views. The case got adjudicated, and Tony Mitchell kind of laid low. Well, this spring he comes in fighting for a safety spot. He had a hamstring apparatus. He was never 100% healthy, and then he hit the transfer portal. Well, it was leaked that he went to the transfer portal, and then he came back, and he said he wasn't in the transfer portal, and now he's in the transfer portal, but he hasn't announced where he's going. We got Merrill coming into Merrill has been with us kind of since Coach Saban, and haven't had him on in quite some time, but we welcome him back today. He's got really great insight. Love to have Merrill on. And Merrill, can you hear us okay, man?
Yeah, you guys hear me?
Yeah, I think there might be a audio side for you. Merrill, what's up, man? Is that good?
What's going on? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, as long as everyone can hear me.
Ask you this, Merrill. Is the audio better with this? Test 1 2 test.
Ooh.
Better this way? Or
so I'm echoing on your end.
Test.
I can hear myself.
How about right now? Test 1 2 2. Test 1 2. Is this better?
Hear you. Yeah, I mean I'm not echoing on your end. So.
All right. So,
yeah, there we go.
Look, we haven't had a chance to talk to you in quite some time.
I know.
The interesting thing is why we brought Merrill on board initially when Coach Saban retired, and was because Merrill was living in Washington at the time where they hired Coach Kalen DeBoer from. So he has a lot of experience in being there, actually played at Washington for a small amount of time. So we like to go to him. He's a defensive minded guy. So Merrill, kind of on the jumping point, and we have Tony Sukalis jumping on at 9. So, we'll continue to get you here in the system. Love having you here. Okay. So from the first, I don't even know, T can look it up, 120 days that Coach Kalen DeBoer has been here, what has stood out as you've been watching the shows, as you've been reading the articles? What have been like 2 bullet points that have stood out about Coach Kalen DeBoer's process of taking over for Coach Saban?
I think he's just been overall like genuine. I think the biggest thing with DeBoer, and you look at everything he's done, in the amount of time, with the amount of pressure. I mean, there's no bigger job right now. I would say, honestly, is there a bigger job in sports right now than taking over for the greatest coach of all time in college football, especially at the level that college football is at right now?
Mm-hmm.
Just, I mean, let that sink in for everybody thinking about this, because that is a hell of a lot of pressure. You guys, everyone, we go to your day job, you're doing your thing. You might feel pressure at that point at times when you maybe have deadlines, or maybe you got a boss who's micromanagement, right? I don't know. You got all these different things that you feel pressure. Imagine taking over a job that's so publicly viewed right now, like this job at Alabama, right? And a job behind the coach who is considered the greatest coach of all time in college football. Yeah. Potentially in football, just based on his ability to win, right? And so, and how much he's impacted even at the NFL from his back history with Saban. So I think what DeBoer has done has been, I would give him an A++. No matter what anyone wants to go, you could nitpick on this. You could go into these fine details. You could say, well, we're not getting the same quality recruits. Well, you know what? It's going to happen. Today, the world has changed with recruiting. The NIL has made the playing field a little more level. Let's just be honest. Even if you had Saban, I just do not think you'd be seeing the same type of. It actually might be a little more difficult because Saban probably wasn't going to reach into the NIL, into the collective to utilize it maybe as much as DeBoer is going to do, or Courtney Morgan, I should say. And so I would say that, like, with everything he's done, with his ability to keep the team together, with his ability to retain what he has. There's been a few losses here and there, maybe a couple major ones, but I think Caden Proctor coming back was a pretty big deal, to be honest with you guys. I think it's going to be significant. We're going to see that this season. But some major ones. But in the overall, I would say he's done a phenomenal job. I think he's gone above the expectation so far. And I think going forward, I look forward to what he's going to do. It's going to be pretty fun to watch for sure.
Merrill, when we look to the transfers in for Alabama, and we talked about these yesterday, as the guys, and it might be fun to actually rank the transfers. I like to rank everything. Like I rank everything. I like to know who the best is. But in terms of like the most impactful transfers, now that Alabama's transfer portals, the Alabama has the pieces that they want from the transfer portal. Who are two guys? You mentioned Caden Proctor, so I would imagine you go with him. Other than Caden Proctor, which other guys do you feel that will make an impact here at Alabama that Coach Kalen DeBoer has brought in from the transfer portal?
Oh, I can go. If we were to rank two guys for now, I mean, the ranking thing would be fun. I think we should do that for sure. But I would say the first one would be the kicker. And I got to get through some of these names. I apologize, because that's been one of the things I've been trying to look through. I don't remember his name, but the kicker they just brought in, the
Graham Nicholson.
Yes. I think that's huge. I'm going to be honest with you. I think today, like, points are a big deal, and to be able to score from just about anywhere on the field. I mean, that percentage, right, as you march down the field, obviously gets bigger and bigger for scoring, and it's smaller the further away you are from your end zone. But you get to trim that up a bit, right, with a really good kicker, and it puts you at an advantage, especially in games. And as we saw last season, even with Washington's ability to stay in close games, you needed. I mean, a lot of those games came down to kicking. But you just look at the SEC, the type of competition. But then I'll say this, and then I do see this question up: is the center from Washington staying? He is staying. That's been a very clear message. DeBoer has stayed, and that would honestly probably be my next one. From number two would be Parker Brailsford. I mean, Parker coming in is awarded from the All-American standpoint, freshman All-American. I think that center position, especially in this type of movement you're asking your line to do, and the type of blocking schemes you're utilizing, right? It's huge from someone who understands, but also the communication. The communication part, I mean, that is one unit, right? You have to function as one. Everything you do in the movement aspect and the way you're seeing the blitz packages or potential changes, right, in stunts, in techniques and shifts, that center is huge on the communication aspect. And I think Parker plays even a bigger role just from the standpoint of his knowledge and depth of the offense. Yes, it's a loss for Brockmeyer to go, but I'll tell you from a standpoint of Parker still being here. And you know what? Like, I've said this before. I said it honestly probably a month or two back when I was talking about Caden Proctor. Was sometimes guys just need to like reset their recharge their batteries. Sometimes they have, we don't have all the details, and I don't think we will. And truthfully, who cares? The guy's coming back, but of why Parker wasn't there and why he wasn't playing. But he'll just be. Maybe he just needs to do his thing for a minute, recenter, refocus. And I heard a really good thing. I forgot who was talking about this, but they said, you come to Alabama, it's hard at times to sit there because there is so much history. There's so much there that you could put on your shoulders, and it would be a lot of pressure from a player's standpoint to continue to succeed at a level that maybe guys have done before you. You have to make it your own, but you have to be you have to have that discipline and that willingness to say to yourself, guess what? Like, I'm going to make it my own, but I'm going to push myself to that standard of excellence, of being the very best I can be. That's where DeBoer does a good job of just managing that entire relationship and helping those players buy in to creating each year, right, your own thing.
We have Meryl on with us for a few more minutes, and Meryl, we'll get you on again. I'll start, I'll add you with the schedule, and I'd like for you, we'll talk offline, but if you can come and wrap with Coach Sean in the evening time, we'll see what your schedule is, and we'll make it work. And because I have Tony coming in here at 9, and then I got Ty coming in at 9:30. But this would be I wanted to hit on this before you bounce out. So. And I've been really eager to ask you this from the offensive standpoint. You have Nick Sheridan, and now we've had an opportunity to hear from him. We've had an opportunity to hear from Jamarcus Shepard as well, who, by the way, my goodness, like the energy that dude has is like, it just spills over into the city, into the state.
Man.
That guy has got it. And Coach Kalen DeBoer is overseeing all this. And I think kind of, to rewind, when Grubb, I guess, decided to go back, and stay in Washington, people were like, oh, it's Grubb's offense. It hasn't. What we learned is it's Coach Kalen DeBoer, and he's been grooming Nick Sheridan and Jamarcus Shepard for this opportunity. Sure, it's a huge jump for Nick Sheridan to go from tight ends coach to offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach. But he has been an OC before. He's younger. But I feel that he's ready for this job, and has Coach Kalen DeBoer working over him. So he's in a much better spot than Tommy Rees was. And I think just from hearing what Jalen Milroe saying, he loves working with Nick Sheridan. And I just want to get your take on kind of the offensive philosophy and how you think they'll be able to help these quarterbacks and kind of the running backs in this whole group, build this, dynamic offense, which I think we're a couple months from seeing.
I honestly, what's crazy is I almost brought this up. If you didn't catch it last night, I was on for those in the chat. I was on Ty Hayes' show last night. I did my first comeback a little bit yesterday evening on a last minute thing because I finally got a new computer, so it's nice. But I'll tell you this: is you look at the offensive staff just in general that DeBoer has. You look at who's there. From a standpoint of your offensive line coach at one point, who was offensive coordinator in North Carolina, putting up record numbers, helping like a QB in the top 5 draft pick from North Carolina back when he was an offensive coordinator. You have a tight ends coach who just comes from like Western Kentucky, I believe, who's like a record-breaking offensive coordinator over there and pass game coordinator. You have Jamarcus Shepard and Nick Sheridan, who've now been in the system. Sheridan's run the system already, seen what works, saw what didn't work without DeBoer, right? And then had a chance to come back, revamp his game, see maybe how Grubb calls it. It's all about continuously learning, right? In life, if you stop learning, you're going to miss out on a lot of things. And honestly, they talk about that. You want to stay young, keep learning. And we got to keep learning. That's the best part about it, right? Keep learning. And I think that's what Sheridan does in this situation, but I'm excited for him because truthfully, if you look back at Indiana's days, the person who really who identifies and locks in Penix and helps coach him through is Nick Sheridan. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. Everyone wants to give that credit to DeBoer. That's actually Nick Sheridan's baby. That's Michael Penix. For everybody who's looking at like, hey man, like what talent-wise, like how'd they find this guy? We knew he was going to be good. Like, that relationship, that coaching, that the numbers he's putting up at Indiana before he gets hurt, that's Nick Sheridan. So I would be really excited. I will tell you guys right now, I think Jalen Milroe is going to go off. I think we're going to see a new upgraded version of Jalen Milroe for all the haters out there that are like, oh, he can't throw. Just wait. And we can only say so much, but we're going to see it's going to happen. And I think he finally has a staff that is so bought into him too, that it's going to be fun to see his overall continued growth, but just to really see his numbers hit this year. That, and then all the quarterbacks that are sitting in that room waiting their turns because they could have bounced and they didn't. And honestly, that was one room I thought I'd see one leave, and nobody did. So guess what? They all believe. That's what that means.
Yeah. Hey, Merrill. Well, I appreciate you hopping on this morning, man. It's always good to rap with you. I love your take. We want to definitely get you within the program again. So we'll be communicating offline, man. But please, everybody, give Merrill a shout out inside the comment box. Does such a great job for us right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Merrill, I'm glad you got a new computer as we go in the summertime, man. Because we're gonna definitely need to lean on you, and appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, for sure. It's good to see you guys. Undefeated, what's up? Catch you guys soon.
All right, take it easy, bro. All right, that is Merrill of the Merrill Report. Up next, we got Tony Tsoukalis of Tide Illustrated, part of the Rivals.com network. Worked for Rivals for, I think, 15 years. Rivals traded me great. Tony Tsoukalis, we worked together for quite some time. He's one of the best in the business in terms of being a beat writer. He is also a Boston Celtics fan, and the Boston Celtics beat up on, well, I'll have Tony tell you about it. So with that said, welcome in Tony Tsoukalis. Tony, what's up, man?
I wouldn't say the Boston Celtics beat up on anybody last night, but they did win, so that's good. They beat a Cavs team without Donovan Mitchell by 7 points. So we'll take it.
Tony's of the Rivals.com network. Tony, how long have you been covering Alabama football now?
Yeah, so I've been on the beat since 2016. I also covered them in college, but like professionally since 2016.
Yeah, so he has, if I know anything about Tony, he loves his work, he loves the Celtics, but he also has a team across the pond that he loves religiously on the soccer front. So I don't know if you want to talk about him now.
No, we're not even going to talk about that. I like Man United, but geez, it's too early in the morning to start my day off that bad, Kyle. Like, give these people a chance.
All right, so Tony, I appreciate you being here. And please check out Tony's work on Rivals front, Tide Illustrated, their Rivals site. He has great work and also helps out with the transfer portal. So, Tony, it's been, obviously a very busy, transfer portal season for you. One of the topics that I wanted to ask you about, and that was something that we were talking about yesterday, is when we talk about, the transfers that are coming in. And now that Coach Kalen DeBoer has put together his transfer portal pieces, it might be obvious, maybe not, but who do you think will be some impactful transfers from the jump as we start this season based off the guys who are coming in?
Yeah, well, you look at the two biggest needs I think they had were Caden Proctor, or the tackle position and the cornerback position. So I look at the players that are coming in from there. So you got Caden Proctor, Damani Jackson, and Deshaun Jones. Obviously, Caden Proctor at the tackle position, and then the other two at the cornerback position. I think those are all starters. And that's the biggest thing. And look, Rivals had me do a grade of Alabama's spring portal, and Alabama was one of the three teams in the SEC I gave like a flat A to. And a lot of people from other fan bases weren't as happy with that because I think, I think the overarching complaint was, they already had Caden Proctor on the team last year. Why do they get so much credit for bringing him in? But when you look at Caden Proctor and you look at the tackle options available, in the spring portal outside of him, they just don't compare. And so the fact that, Kalen DeBoer was able to bring back Caden Proctor was such a big get, because you basically got, if you want to think about this in like NFL draft standpoints, you basically got like a top 10 pick when at tackle, when all the rest of the tackles were late second round at best. So I think you really hit a home run there in a very weak tackle market. And then you look at the cornerback positions. I don't think either of the guys that they got are at the same level as Terrion Arnold or Kool-Aid McKinstry. But you got Damani Jackson, who was in our rankings, the third best cornerback in his class. Deshaun Jones is somebody that led Indiana in interceptions this year. Both of those guys need to improve their coverage skills in terms of like just on a regular basis. But I think that they're both capable of playing either the field or boundary positions in Kane Womack's defense. And so I think that they'll probably be starters. I know Xavier Brown had a good spring, but if you look back even at the 8A game, and I don't want to pick on Xavier Brown, but some of those plays where Alabama made big plays through the air, it was on a freshman cornerback. And I think Xavier Brown's capable of stepping in if he has to, but I think it's nice now that Alabama doesn't have to totally throw a true freshman into the fire. And like just with depth, it's hard to have depth in today's landscape where nobody wants to be a backup. So having a guy like Xavier Brown as a backup, I think is really big. So those two positions, I guess, so those three guys would be the ones that I would really highlight.
Tony, this Alabama needed a kicker. Connor Talty, I'm sure maybe he was going to be capable. But when I look to Alabama, I was if you're not an Alabama fan, you're like, you guys don't have a kicker. And I felt that Alabama needed a kicker. And then they go out and they get the Lou Groza Award winner in Graham Nicholson. And sometimes, I'm not sure why, but we don't talk about special teams. It's like we talk offense, defense, and then forget about special teams. You got James Burnip coming in, who's going to be he's such a weapon. He was a weapon last year. And then you go and get the Lou Groza Award winner in Graham Nicholson. You think of all the points that Will Reichert had for Alabama, and now you have Graham Nicholson coming in. How big is that for this team to get not only a kicker, but a kicker of that quality?
I mean, finally for Alabama, they get a kicker who can win a Lou Groza Award, right?
Right.
I think it's kind of funny because I knew Graham Nicholson from Alabama fans complaining about him, why he didn't deserve the Lou Groza Award and why Will Reichert did. But no, I think he's an extremely consistent kicker, and it just takes that worry away. I think the person before me on your show talked about shortening the field, or I guess increasing the amount of space you can score from on the field. So Graham Nicholson, I don't think he was required to kick like a ton of long kicks, but he's 27 of 28, he doesn't miss. Mm-hmm. So really in the college game, I think that's the most important thing. I don't really think you need to be able to hit from 60, nor do I know if Graham Nicholson can hit from 60, but mm-hmm. It's really hitting those 40-yarders, right? And just being consistent with them. And I think he's going to do that. So I think it buys Alabama another year to find another kicker, and you've got that elite level guy. You talked about Burnip too on special teams. I mean, they've got a really good group of specialists, right? Because I think James Burnip had a really underrated year. And he's a guy that has made progress in every single year. So you would think that it's going to continue this year, or at least he's going to be able to maintain it. Because it's not like he went up and down and up and down. Like, he's been consistently better. And you got to remember, he didn't play American football before coming to Alabama. So I think he's only going to get better and better. So I like all the specialists. I like, they've got some guys that can really do work in the return game as well. So this could be across the board a really good special teams team, I guess is what you would say.
I guess I was going to ask you about our next bullet point here, which is the player you feel who will have the biggest breakout season that's not a freshman. But before I go to that, like if we had a game, if Alabama had a game tomorrow, who do you think would be like the kick returner and the punt returner? Like, just like, I mean, who do you think it would be?
Off the top of my head, I forget who was. I'd have to think about that more, because there's definitely an answer to that, and I didn't really look. On A-Day. I'm trying to remember who it is. Maybe the Undefeated could help me out with this one, but who is you can go back in A-Day, and I know there's some options. Talk about just ask the Undefeated. Undefeated. Who was the kick returner, punt returner for A-Day? I just wanted to, because that's something that we always think that's a good way to get people into the game that wouldn't get into the game as much regardless. So I mean, if there's a way to get like a Jalen Mbakwe touches and keep him happy, then maybe that. And I'm not just exclusive to him, but like somebody like that, or somebody like a Richard Young, where maybe you don't get as many like for a kick returner. Somebody that has talent that maybe you're not going to get them the ball as much, but that can make a play, and then you find a role for them. So I think that could be somebody. I would do it for somebody like that. I think you have enough athletes on this team that you don't necessarily need to give it to somebody like Kool-Aid last year, where you just had you don't want to give it to somebody that necessarily you would lose if they got injured, because I think that there's plenty of people that are capable of doing that.
I wanted to ask you, and if you guys have a question for Tony, you can drop it inside the comment box before Tony gets out.
Get it answered, man. Jam and Law. Both of those are fine. Yeah, that's kind of like I can see that. Kendrick Law is a guy that can make a lot of plays in open space. Him and Jam, they're both hard runners too. So for kick return, they can break some tackles and stuff. I think that'd be good.
Well, and see, I've actually talked about this before. I didn't think about him as a kick returner, but maybe as a punt returner, just because of his yard after contact. Like you can't bring. It didn't seem like you could bring this guy in first contact, which is Richard Young, right? Like figure out a way to get him the ball because he ran over Jeremiah Alexander a couple of times. So I always like a punt returner who has speed but can also get off first point of contact. So Travis thinks Emmanuel Henderson returned as few as well. But anyways, just wanted to ask you that.
Tony, Emmanuel Henderson's another good guy that probably is not going to get or might not get as much action on offense as he deserves just because of the depth on this team. So another good
one. Let's see. Okay, this is a good one. Who do you think, you could, it doesn't have to be one. You can name a couple of them, but guys who could be breakout players that are not freshmen. So non-freshmen breakout players that we kind of have our tabs on after spring, storylines that we know kind of going into the season. I know it's all hypothetical, but who are we kind of watching that could potentially have a breakout season this year?
Yeah, I think probably the wide receiver position is the first place you look. We saw what Jeremy Bernard can do during 8-day game. I think Kobe Prentice is another person that I think is really interesting. And I actually think, there's a lot of excitement about Ryan Williams, but if you look at, if you just look at the experience on this team and you look at a guy like, if you're going to have Kayla and Bernard and Prentice, I think Prentice probably starts in the slot. And that's where I kind of like Ryan Williams to start off the bat. So I could actually see Prentice maybe getting some action before Ryan Williams. And I think they're going to have plenty of 4 receiver sets. And I think that Ryan's going to get plenty of action as well. And he'll be a difference maker. But early on in the season, I think that Kobe Prentice can be what a lot of people think that Ryan Williams is going to eventually be. I think he's going to take advantage of those roles. He's been with the team. He's been with Jalen Milroe for a while, so he's going to have some chemistry there. And look at the stuff that Jalen Milroe does the best is going deep and hitting those long balls. And Kobe Prentice has got that kind of speed. If you were trying to find a person on the roster that was the most like Isaiah Bond, it would be Kobe Prentice. And I think that he's the kind of guy that is really going to benefit from the DeBoer system, where it's like, we saw what DeBoer can do with all these receivers, and he's never had someone, as talented as some of the receivers he's going to have, at least from out of high school, that kind of talent. So I think Kobe Prentice could be a big one. Jeremy Bernard. I guess, you could look at, I think it feels like it's kind of cheating to say Justice Haynes, but Justice Haynes could be the starting running back on this team, and he could get a lot of space to run. I don't know if either of those running backs are going to get, 1,000 yards, especially since it's going to be Jalen at quarterback. I think between splitting it between themselves, and then Jalen's going to pick up his yards just because that's what he does. So you might not have a crazy number at the running back position, but I think that they're going to be pretty solid as well. I'm trying to think of some other guys that could break out maybe on defense. You've got Jamarian Latham, I think, is the guy that I like at that bandit role. I know I did something on LT Overton. I think both those guys at the bandit role are pretty good. I think you would already argue that both of the linebackers broke out. So yeah, I think maybe I kind of like Jamarian Latham as that
what
guy.
About, what's kind of the pulse on a guy like Q Robinson?
I like him. I don't. If I'm just being honest, I don't see him at that same level as I did with Braswell and Turner and Anderson. But maybe that's just because I haven't seen him enough. Talk about special teams. He's a guy that dominated on that aspect. I think that there's some other guys too that could be almost like a committee. If he doesn't kind of take that by the horns, there's so much talent at that spot that that could just be whoever's the hottest guy, right? And that could play the Wolf position, because basically, if you look at the body types in this defense, Jack and Sam used to be pretty similar body types. Bandit and Wolf are different body types. Bandit's more of that heavy defensive lineman, so you're adding it 20 or 30 pounds. So Alabama has a ton of wolves, I guess is what you would say, because they had all their Sam and Jack linebackers are now just in one position. So you've got a lot of depth. I think that's the deepest part of the roster. So Q Robinson is going to lead that pack, but I think, that's a spot where Alabama has probably more options than it does, maybe even on both sides of the ball.
Tony, I don't know if you need to send a text message out, but you got the home opener. The time has been announced. It's at 6 p.m. So I don't know if you need to delegate that out against Western Kentucky. Just a quick little soundbite. Yeah, we'll get you out here in a minute. I know you have to write stories as they come in, so just a heads up.
We've got that covered. No worries. Yeah.
All right, cool. So just heads up. I just saw Alabama tweeted this out. So Western Kentucky and Alabama, the home opener will be at 6 p.m. Central Time on ESPN. So just a heads up on that. And then yesterday got announced that Alabama and Wisconsin will be at 11 a.m. And then Alabama and Georgia, I think, is at 6:30, if I'm not mistaken. So those are kind of the times they're starting to come together for some of these games. Tony, what about a player like Keon Keeley?
Yeah, so they're moving him to the bandit role. So he's kind of like a hybrid of the two. I think he's got potential. You look at like if he's going to play a lot. I mean, maybe I could see him serving in a different version of the bandit role because he's not like two body type, right? He's kind of like a tweener between those two spots. So he's not going to be exactly a like for like I think Latham and Overton are pretty much the same dude and they're built the same way. So maybe you can do something different with Keeley. So maybe there's a package for him. I don't expect him to be a one of the first names you mentioned as a difference maker on this defense. I'm not saying he can't develop into one, and I'm not even necessarily saying he doesn't have a role, but he's not somebody I pencil in as like having a breakout year just because I think his role will be more of a novelty thing than it will be a main thing.
I wanted to ask you, so during this springtime, meeting all of the new coaches, getting to interview all of the new coaches, talk about, was there one coach that particularly impressed you, or just if you could talk about just a couple of them and kind of like this new energy, or what was it like for you as a reporter getting to now talk to assistant coaches where you really haven't had that opportunity in the past under Coach Saban? How different was that for you, and kind of what stood out about their personalities the more you got to talk to some of these coaches through spring?
Yeah, it was fun just to get to talk to them, because they've kind of all just been like, faceless, entities. Like we haven't really gotten to get to know any of them, and we've, it's only been a couple of times each because they spread them all out so we could meet them all. But no, that seems like a really good group. I mean, just on paper, it's obviously a really good group. In terms of personalities that kind of stood out, if I was Jamarcus Shepard is probably the most energetic, and that's his personality, just like the intensity, his energy is jumps off the page, and that's one of the first things you notice. Like if I had to hand out a would most likely want or would most want to get a beer with you award, I think it'd be Kane Womack. I just like his style. I think he'd be funny. I haven't really gotten to talk with him or anything in depth, but I just like his personality and demeanor, and it just seems like he's just a really cool guy. Some of them are just you're trying to bounce around, so you don't really know. I mean, Sheridan's kind of what you would expect. So he's got he's not an old guy, He's got a huge family because he's got I don't know if he's got 3 or 4 kids or something, because I was walking down the steps of Malmore facility late, and he was with his wife, and I think he had 3 kids already, and it's just I was like, man, I can't even imagine, on top of being as busy as you are. But no, he, I met for 15 seconds, met his family, and then they seemed really nice. All the coaches seemed pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There wasn't really one that I can't ever say his name right. Is it Kapelovich or is it Cap?
I've done this because I say it all the time. Kapilovic.
He seems cool though.
Kapilovic.
Okay. Yeah. He seems pretty cool.
Yeah, he does. Before I ask you about basketball, you were at the Regions Pro-Am golf event where you had Coach Saban, you had Coach Kalen DeBoer. Was there anything, and I know you wrote like everything that Coach, Kalen DeBoer said, was there anything impactful out of that? And people always, the two biggest things that we talk about sometimes are for people who don't follow, because a lot of people don't follow it every single second, right? There's like periodically, come in, they're just general fans. But a lot of people don't understand that Ryan Williams, they're like, why wasn't he here? He's, mid-year enrollee. But like this Parker Brailsford thing, because he came in and like he never snapped the ball. Was there anything like impactful that Coach Kalen DeBoer said during that Regents prom that kind of made your ears perk up?
Yeah, I mean, well, for Parker Brailsford, DeBoer's maintained that he's going to be fine. At Regents, he said that he'll be back with the team when they begin summer workouts. I have no reason not to take Kalen DeBoer's word seriously, but I also know that, like, why would a coach, if something wasn't fine, say that it wasn't fine? And let's just, kind of call a spade here. It is somewhat alarming that a center who is underweight from an SEC standpoint, not saying he can't play, comes into spring camp, is held out of spring camp, the majority of it, for a non-football reason. So there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying there's anything wrong.
Yeah.
Then it's just gonna come in and win the job in the fall with no issues, no chemistry issues, no bonding issues. We're just supposed to just ignore all of that. Seems like a stretch, right? I mean, I think getting Gino Vandemark from Michigan State, I think, was such a big ad, because if things don't go to plan with Parker Brailsford, I think you have a nice backup plan. I think, Gino's a guy that could come in and play the center position. He played a lot of right guard at Michigan State, but he also worked at center. Maybe not as much during games, but that's, you can even find quotes from Kapelovich, kind of saying that he likes him at both spots. So obviously Gino's a little bit bigger. I think he's like 6'5", 320 or something like that. So, I mean, if the thing doesn't work with Parker Brailsford, and for whatever reason, whether it's whatever he's struggling with off the field, or whether it's just, adjusting to the SEC, whatever it is, because I'm not privy to it, and I don't think anyone really is. If that doesn't work, I think having someone in Gino Vandemark is a big deal. I think he'll be capable of coming in and starting. Let's remember that Landon Dickerson wasn't. I think he came in as a guard from Florida State. So kind of same body type. You'd have a bigger center, but
he's my favorite. I think he's everybody's favorite center over the past years. I equate it kind of like I've been covering the team, for the past 8 seasons. So like he's the guy who stands out to me. And you're right, like his size was impressive to me. Same thing with like Bradley Bozeman or even Ross Pierce-Baker. Like those guys were larger type centers. And if you think about it, Alabama lost Ferguson, right? He was playing some center. He left Florida State. Seth left. And then you had James Brockermeyer leave. So
I don't pay attention to the depth at Florida State. So maybe I'm just, totally clueless on this, but Terrence Ferguson has to be like shooting himself right now, because here's a guy that left because of playing time, and like, with Brockermeyer leaving, he's probably your center if things. I think if you could look into that crystal ball, I'm not sure if they go and get a Gino Vandemark if they already had a Terrence Ferguson. Now, I don't know. Maybe he's like starting at Florida State. I don't really know their offensive line setup. So maybe I'm totally wrong here. And maybe he just wanted to go there anyways. But yeah, there would have probably been a spot for him to work his way into this starting offensive line.
Yeah, I think you're 1,000,000% right. I wanted to transition while we have you for up till 9:30, and then we have Ty Hayes from Round the Table Sports coming on about basketball. Because now, like you and I, so Tony and I, we used to work together for quite some time. I loved working with Tony, tremendous work ethic, and we started out together. So I move over to Tuscaloosa, and the very first video of this YouTube channel that we uploaded was of Alabama basketball. So Tony and I have it. I like to send it to Tony every once in a while. It's from 8 years ago. And I send it to Tony every once in a while. But Tony and I are outside of the Coleman Coliseum. You can't hear what we're saying. And we had just covered a basketball game under Avery Johnson. So to look at where Alabama basketball was then to where it is now, there's clearly been a large metamorphosis. And this particular team has so much. But before we get there, Tony, you've seen Nate Oates from day one to where we're at right now. I mean, I don't know if there's any, if you could even encapsulate it in those few minutes, but it's been remarkable to see the job that he's done here at Alabama. Can you just talk a little bit about Nate Oates before I talk to you about the roster?
Yeah, I think Nate Oates has just done an excellent job. I think he's probably one of the top 5, or if not top 5, definitely top 10 coaches in college basketball. He came in here, he recruited well right away, and he's just consistently gotten better. He stuck to his scheme. There's been plenty of people that have doubted whether, Alabama's high 3% volume of threes and the output, and whether or not it would be I guess conducive to the NCAA tournament. And obviously Nate Oates proved that you can make a Final Four run with it. And that, it's a successful system. It's modern basketball. I think probably one of, Nate Oates is a great recruiter, but I think one of the best things he has in his up his sleeve is this is a system that's very similar to what they use in the NBA. So you get guys that want to play in the NBA, they want to do this and they want to get ready for this and be utilized the way that maybe NBA teams would utilize them. So Nate Oates' system offers that. It's fun to play in. He's a fun guy. He's a witty, charming kind of guy, and he's a tough coach to play for. But he's also I could see where he could win you over and really sell you on his vision. And so yeah, he's done an excellent job. And Alabama is going to be maybe preseason favorites. If not, there'll be 1 or 2. I'd put him at number 1 heading into this season.
Now, when we talk about the roster, what can you give us the update on Mark Sears? I know there hasn't been no official announcement, but what is the date that he has to decide whether or not he's coming back to play with this Alabama basketball team? We're talking about Mark Sears.
Yeah, so it's 29th, right?
I think you're right. Yeah, it's coming up here. What do you have any feeling of
I think he's coming back. I think it's a weird thing with him measuring in at 5'10", because the point I made, yesterday when that happened was that he didn't shrink, right? It's not like he lost 2 inches in the last 2 weeks. He was playing at 5'10" throughout the season. When if you like this film at 5'10", then guess what? He was 5'10" then too. So I mean, that's one thing. He would be one of the shortest players, if not the shortest. I forget if I saw a tweet, but in the NBA, so that's concerning. I think that's probably going to be the ultimate reason why he comes back. It's kind of the same thing in the NFL, right? There's teams that are looking for reasons not to draft you. Well, being that short is a reason. I think that probably contributes to, a team maybe not drafting him. But then again, if there's a team that really liked his film, that's not something that has changed. It's not like he got injured or anything. So he also had a really good vertical. So you can kind of make up with some of the lack of height with a good vertical. There might be a team that, just falls in love with him. I just think that he's probably going to come back. I just think, and I think that will, I'm not sure how much it's going to help his draft stock, but it gives him a chance to be an Alabama legend. I think if he comes back and has a similar year to this year, I think he's the best player in Alabama basketball history. And he could be a part of their first national championship team. Because I mean, that's the expectation for this team, which is crazy to say. But if he comes back, I think that's the number one goal. You have a team very capable of winning a national title.
Ty, we'll bring you on in just a few minutes, man. I got Tony on for just a few minutes. That's crazy to say that he could be one of the best basketball players ever. When I think back in the short time, I mean, I've covered Alabama for a decent time, but Colin Sexton coming out of here was crazy. And I always think back to the game where he was playing 3-on-5. It was the same day as the Iron Bowl, and he dropped out.
Paid attention. In a normal year, that game probably gets so much coverage. But Alabama not only played in an Iron Bowl, they lost an Iron Bowl, and everyone was concerned about their playoff chances. Which, interestingly enough, that was the year that they beat Georgia in the national title game and with Tua. But we were all, I guess, concerned about either the Iron Bowl or then where does Alabama go now, and can they make the playoffs still? And we kind of just glossed over a game where Colin Sexton almost beat a team giving out like fake high fives at the free throw line because there wasn't actually any teammates there.
That was
that was a crazy game.
This transfer that they got in, Chris Amori from Rutgers, is he the missing link that Alabama basketball needed? Is that an easy question?
Well, he is like what they needed this past year and what they'll need this coming year as well, just as that rim protector. I don't think he's a guy that's going to put up 20 points a game or really be a star offensive player. I think he can contribute a little bit on offense, but really he's your defensive guy. He's going to allow Grant Nelson to play the 4. He's also probably going to keep Grant Nelson on the court longer, because I mean, if you're playing the 5 as Grant did, he proved he's capable of doing that, but he would also get into foul trouble. I think he's going to get in less foul trouble at the 4. So I think you're going to see an improved, season from Grant. As far as just the rim protector, I think that's exactly what Alabama needed. Cliff Amori averaged 2.9 blocks per game last year. I think he led all of the Power 5 centers in blocks. So I know Power 5 is not like as big of a deal in basketball, but he was one of the top block leaders in college basketball, and so I think that's exactly what they needed. He's kind of like, well, even better, but they were kind of hoping that they were going to get something like that from Charles Bediako before he unexpectedly left to the draft. Well, Cliff is kind of that on steroids in terms of being that protector, that big guy. You talk about going up against a Klingon or going up against an Edie, or this year they're going to have to possibly go against Cockburn twice. He's the guy you want defending those guys and really shutting them down.
And then you have LeBaron Philon, Aiden Holloway coming in. I don't know if you've had the chance to watch LeBaron, I think I'm saying his name right, Philon, like his highlights. Like I was watching him the other day, and like he's an elite point guard. I mean, he was like, I can't
top 30 players, top 40 players that are coming in. I mean, Aiden Holloway too had a not great season at Auburn, but is a really top talent. It's so crazy because these players like 10, 12 years ago, you just get one of these players in a class in Alabama basketball, it'd be just going crazy. I mean, like one of Holloway or Philon's just not going to play that much, because Mark comes back. So it's just kind of funny that like these guys are huge difference makers. They look just like 1 to 12 on the lineup. It's just crazy. Like you could make the argument, and I'm not even trying to put anyone down. This is just me making an argument here that like Mo Diabate is like the worst player on the team, and he won you a tournament game last year off the bench. So the fact that you would have, I mean, it's really hard to designate worst. You put that in big quotation marks because there's nobody really bad on this team. If you look at other like end of the bench options, it's like Nas Cunningham was a former number 1 overall recruit, and I think now he's like somewhere ranked in the 30s or 40s. But like he's going to be at the end of your bench. He might not play this year. It's crazy that you have a guy like that in a lot of years is somebody that you're like super counting on. Maybe Alabama finds different roles. And I think one of the biggest things that this team will have is if there's injuries, they definitely have guys to plug those holes. And I think that's huge. I don't think you're going to be missing anyone the way that you were missing when Latrell Wrightsell went out. Like you're going to have guys that can step in. Maybe they won't be the preferred option, but they'll be, really good replacements. And I don't think you're going to miss a beat too often on this season, regardless of how things go, barring like an injury pandemic, like just like of like, barring like just, I don't know, a pile up in practice one day, knock on wood, I guess, for Alabama. But I think that they're going to be just fine when it comes to withstanding the season.
Tony, before you go, can you tell people where they can find your work? And I know you always have different projects going on, but what are you guys tracking right now during the month of May? I know it's not the busiest time ever, but maybe you have some sort of series going on, or can you tell people where to read your guys' work and like what else you guys got going on at Tide Illustrated, part of the Rivals.com network?
Yeah, so it's TideIllustrated.com, or you can go to Alabama.rivals.com. It'll take you to the same place. You can follow us at Tide Illustrated on X, or you can follow me at Tony_Sukalis. I don't know if my name is out there, but if you type in TSOU, you'll find me on X. As far as what we're doing right now, I mean, it is kind of a slow time, but we have recruiting full swing, and then really the series we're doing right now is kind of interesting. We're doing a spotlight on all the transfers, so I'm going in order in terms of when they committed. So we did LT Overton yesterday, we did Damani Jackson today. Tomorrow we'll do Nicole Betrin, and we'll just go down the list and then kind of do a little profile and what to expect from each of Alabama's incoming transfers this year. So it's fun to kind of follow. It's kind of like what we've been talking about today, right? But in story form. So that's a fun little feature to follow as well.
Yeah, so definitely please support Tony both on social media and on Rivals.com. Rivals.com, I was with them for quite some time. They always treat me very fair, and they have a really great website, and definitely support Tony. I put his Instagram handle, his Twitter handle inside the comment box. So we love having you on, Tony. We really appreciate your time today, and thank you very much for joining us to talk a little bit of football, a little bit of basketball, and we'll catch you some other time.
Awesome, man. Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, Tony Tsoukalis of Rivals. And now we welcome on Ty Hayes from Around the Table Sports. We go right back into it. From one guest to another. Ty, what's up, man? Tony does such a great job for us. And so do you. So yesterday, I know you had your roundtable talking college football in general. It's good to have Merrill back in the house. I had him on today, and I think I'm going to have him join you on your segment kind of in the half end, if that's cool.
Love it. I would love that, man. I know you.
Yeah, I know you and Merrill have really good synergy. When we talk about kind of non-freshman breakout players, and I want to continue hit on this. Now that you might have had a little bit more time, that this is sunken in, is there a player that pops off to you from this football team? And maybe start with the defense, because there's quite a bit of players that I think might be on the verge to have that breakout season.
So I gave one yesterday. I'm going to reinforce it. Damani Jackson. I know Hattie May says Damani not big enough in my opinion. He's 6'1", 190, running a 10.2 500-meter dash. And that was when he first got here. We know what this Alabama strength and conditioning program is. He'll probably play the year at 195. And if you go back and watch some USC film, you can tell times when he was frustrated with the whole situation at USC. And I'll remember one time they had a wide receiver coming across the middle. He caught the ball, and Damani sent him into the shadow realm. He sent him to another. This guy is not afraid of contact. He's built too. Damani has been out there working out, and you can tell this guy is yoked. So I'm really, Kyle, I cannot contain my excitement for Damani Jackson. But because I gave that name yesterday, I'm going to give a second name on defense. And I'm split between two.
Okay.
Tim Keenan or Jaheim Otis. Now, Jaheim Otis is someone who was not healthy all last year. But if you go back and watch the All-22 of when he was healthy, oh my gosh, Kyle. I mean, he has got game-breaking ability, and this is when they kind of moved him out to that defensive end to try and gain as much versatility and flexibility as they could. Now, you're probably going to be in a situation where you have Jamarian Latham or LT Overton at the defensive end. You're going to have your two defensive tackles of Tim Keenan, Jaheim Otis, and then let's say a Keanu Cott or a Yanze Pierre, a Quay Rousseau at the other side. Trying to contain Tim Keenan and Jaheim Otis when Jaheim Otis is fully healthy, that's going to be problematic for any offensive line in the country. Coach Jay made a great point last night about LSU having a fantastic offensive line. I'm going to be circling that game, especially if Jaheim Otis is healthy. But give me Jaheim Otis.
Yeah. Okay. So Jaheim Otis, I like that call, and Damani Jackson. So I appreciate that. Just wanted to ask you, kind of follow up, because we were talking with Tony, with a couple people, on the offensive side. And by the way, as we're talking about it, Tony just tweeted this out. Today, we continue to look at the Alabama transfer portal spotlight with Damani Jackson. So if you want to read more on the editorial side, and those guys do a really good job of diving in, whether you're a part of Rivals, On3, I'm sure you have subscriptions to both of them. So definitely check it out. They do a spotlight feature on Damani Jackson. Here with Ty Hayes from Around the Table Sports. I was talking about this earlier on my segment this morning. kind of like defensive expectations. Do you feel that, like it's always, the expectations for this defense have been elite, dominate. The defense wins championships, all this stuff. Glenn, inside the comment box, I don't know if Glenn is dipped out, but he kind of refers to college football now as grass basketball, right? Like there's so many points, this and that. Like, have you had a chance to think about like defensive expectations? What are they? I know the secondary only has one returner, but they have a lot of guys coming in. I don't know. Like, is it unfair to put any sort of defensive expectations right now because you replaced, your head football coach was a defensive-minded coach, or what are you kind of thinking in terms of defensive expectations just for right now, for like May 14th?
I don't think it's unfair. And this is maybe it is, but this is the unfortunate reality, Kyle. This is Alabama, right? So whether it's fair or unfair to put expectations, by the very nature of going to Alabama, by being a member of the Crimson Tide, it comes with expectations, right? It's just like going to Harvard. You don't go to Harvard with no expectations. I went to UNT, expectations very low, right? That's all well and good. It's a great school. I'm not saying that there's not other great colleges out there or that, there's not other great football programs out there. My contention is that there are certain places out there where, whether it's fair or not, there are expectations. MIT, there are expectations. Alabama is the Harvard, the MIT of the college football world. There are expectations. Whether they're fair or not, they're there. So you might as well fight to answer them, right? Here's the thing I know. I love that grass basketball analogy. Right. It is kind of funny. But as much as I even thought that was the case, there have only been 3 teams since 2000 win the national championship while having a scoring defense ranked outside the top 30. So, Kyle, my thought process is this. Yes, Nick Saban's not here anymore. One of the greatest defensive minds that has ever graced college football. So I don't expect Alabama to be a top 5 defense, not year one under Kalen DeBoer. They replaced a lot. The secondary, they have a lot of moving parts. But if this team with this offense can be anywhere from 17 to 25, watch out. That's, to me, if they're anywhere in the top 25 scoring defenses, this team can compete and win a national championship. You don't have to be the best defense in college football. It helps. But what we have found since 2000 is that it takes a balanced team. Only 3 teams have ranked outside the top 30 scoring defenses, all of which had uncommon rosters. You're talking Cam Newton at Auburn. That was the first. You're talking Ohio State, the year they won it during the college football playoff spree. And then you're talking 2019 LSU. I would much rather be one of the people in the average as opposed to an exception. Now, everybody wants to be an exception, but I just don't think that you're going to hit odds very often if you're constantly trying to be the exception as opposed to the rule. Yeah.
I appreciate it. It's just like when you look back on just the game, how college football has evolved. It's amazing to even watch kind of defense in this present day. And I get it. Michigan had the lightest schedule up until the back end when they played Penn State and Ohio State, which were on the far back end. But throughout the season, Michigan's defense, like they were only allowing like a touchdown a game, if that. Something like they were only allowing, I think, like 7.5 points per game for the majority of the season until they got to the back end, which I thought was admirable considering just the world of college football has completely changed. Then again, you look to Washington, who was on the flip side. I think Washington last season finished like 110th on the defensive front. But don't let that scare you, because these are different players that came that are here at Alabama. These players still understand the concept of defense. You have a completely different roster. Plus, you didn't bring over this. This was the amazing thing, Ty. Coach Kalen DeBoer didn't bring over one coach from the Washington staff on the defensive front. There was, I think it was William Inge, who was like kind of rumored to be here or was here, but then he took a job with Tennessee. But I always thought that was amazing. And he never came out and said it. And I don't even think anybody has asked it. But I think on the back of his mind, maybe that was one of the areas that Coach Kalen DeBoer wants to grow at as a coach, because I think he has all of the offensive components. But I don't think you can be a head football coach and be satisfied with even getting to the national championship, I get it, they didn't win it, but also having your defense as 110, like that's just not going to cut it. And anybody who is ultra competitive and, kind of has a grasp of their team knows that is just not going to cut it here, specifically in the SEC when you're playing the minds of Lane Kiffin, a Josh Heupel, a Brett Venables with his, even Hugh Freeze. I mean, look what they did running against Alabama. So you got to be able to tighten up the defense, Ty.
No, you're 1,000% correct, Kyle. It's part of the reason why whenever he got hired here, and I will never forget this. As long as I live, I will never forget this one moment, because it was when we were all doing the group therapy sessions, right? Like 14-hour live streams. For those of you that might be new, we were literally doing 14, 15, 13-hour live streams every single day, even after DeBoer was hired. I mean, it just didn't stop. But I'll never forget, right before he took the podium, you had, I think you had taken a phone call and you were about to hop back in, and it was, the panel and Coach Jay. I asked everybody, what do you need to hear? Now, granted, Coach Jay and we have been talking about DeBoer and Washington for 2 years now. If you've been over at Around the Table Sports, we have both banged our hands on the table screaming that Kalen DeBoer and Washington is where you need to direct your attention, because if you're not watching that, you're missing out on some of the most exciting football there is. We loved it. But I'll never forget Coach Jay's answer. And I think it's one of the most powerful statements I've heard this year. Coach Jay said, I need to hear him say, I don't know these things. I don't know how to recruit in the SEC. I don't know what it means to play high-quality defensive ball in the SEC. And what Coach Jay was meaning is, if you never acknowledge what you don't know, you can't grow. If you walk around thinking you know it all, how are you going to learn? The first thing he did is say, yeah, I wanted to bring my offensive staff with me. I wanted to bring my staff from Washington, but I also know this is the SEC. So I'm going to get guys that understand the SEC, understand what it takes to win here, and we're going to merge it all together. When he said that, Coach Jay and I threw our hands up and we were like, we're gold. We're ready to roll.
Yeah.
I loved that point, Kyle. You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to turn the keys over to you, but I do have Merrill who's going to jump on. Merrill has been in communication with T. T got in communication with me. So I think Merrill, if you're out there, anytime you can pop back on and rock with Ty, and Ty can close it out whenever you're good with it, Ty. So I appreciate you guys being here. Please support Ty. Please support Around the Table Sports. He's got his own YouTube channel. Coach Sean has his own YouTube channel. Coach Jarek has his own YouTube channel. Coach Smook has his own YouTube channel. So a lot of great content creators out there that are all doing their thing and showcasing their personalities. So YouTube is a large space. There's a lot of different personalities. There's a lot of different content creators out there that are doing what they love in different spaces. So please support them and find what you like. There's different personalities that you're going to gravitate towards. There's different opinions. There's different shows. There's some are large, some are small. But the truth of the matter is the content creators on here on YouTube, they really want to showcase their gifts, their talents, and talk football or talk whatever with you. So, enjoy all the content creators. And Coach Sean just started up his new YouTube channel. So, and I know, Ty, you've been really mentoring him on that, which I appreciate, because Coach Sean, definitely good people.
Smart as hell, man. I can't tell you.
Yeah, facts.
I don't know if I showed you this, but the other day when we came on together, I always have a notebook next to me, and I'll have my notes. But when I'm with Coach Sean, I flip the page to a blank page, and this was the end, just full. Because,
and you know what, Coach Sean has a notebook like that too, where he does like all the detail work. So he's we're real proud of him. He does a great job. So And we got Merrill. So Merrill will be joining us at some point in time. I'd imagine he just kind of pops on. So I appreciate you guys being here with me for the last hour and 40 minutes. I will be on as news happens right here on Bama Football on YouTube. And I appreciate you guys. Please support Ty like you guys support me. And thank you very much for joining me this morning on Bama Football on YouTube. Ty, do your thing. And I appreciate you being here.
Appreciate it, Kyle, as always, for allowing me on this platform, because it truly is a blessing to be here. Ladies and gentlemen of the Undefeated, how are we doing on this Tuesday morning? I haven't gotten to give shout out Kevin, Jay, JT83, Chris from New Jersey, Hacker Music, Travis, Hattie Mae, EJ, saying, I love and respect Damani Jackson so much more after that interview. You and me both, man. I text Coach Sean when I was watching that interview, and I said, Coach, have you seen the interview? He hit me back instantly and said, oh, no, it's literally loaded up on my YouTube queue. I just haven't watched it yet. Is it worth it? I said, Coach, you're going to love it. I told him, I said, you know how excited I am for Damani Jackson. I haven't hid that. See, Damani Jackson is interesting, ladies and gentlemen, because that recruiting class is the first year I started doing YouTube. Was that recruiting class. That's when I really started covering recruiting. And covering is a generous word. I'm just an opinion piece, right? So I'm just going to talk about my thoughts. But you can go back, and I was very excited about Damani Jackson, even more so that he's here now. So happy y'all are all in here. Glenn, how you doing? What's up? Roll Tide, Patty. Happy you're here. What a show this morning. Yesterday, we did a round table over at Around the Table Sports. We had myself, we had Coach Sean, we had Coach Jay, we had Jake, we had Nino of Nino's Sport Corner, a Texas fan, but hey, anybody that was there, and I know Hacker's familiar with Nino. He's been on my channel before. Nino is smart as a whip, man. Like, that guy knows football. If he's speaking, you listen. And he gave a really powerful analysis of how he thinks college football is sleeping on Alabama and that Alabama is about to slap some people around. In fact, he went as far as to say that he thought Alabama was the dark horse favorite to win the national championship, or at least from his perspective. Now, this guy bleeds burnt orange. This guy has been around that Texas program, knows that Texas program as well as anybody out there, as well as any of the insiders, anybody. I'm just lucky enough to be able to do content with him. And of course, Hayes Fawcett granted us with an hour and 45 minutes talking to us about the ever-changing landscape of college football, how it's affected recruiting, who impressed him in the transfer portal, whether he thought that this transfer portal would be bigger than it was, right? I thought it would be. Heck, I got a transfer portal wizard to come in here, and nothing ended up happening that was just incredibly crazy. So, unbelievable time over there last night. Happy to be here this morning. Jay Swan says, Damani catapulted himself as one of my fave players on the teams, rooting for the guy. Great mindset. I think he's in for an all-SEC year. I think he's got all-American talent. Right? I mean, when you look at the physical tools, it's there. Now he's being coached by Mo Linguist. I love that. And I think that one of the things that helps, even for Alabama, whenever we're talking about like a Dijon Lee, right? Let me make sure I get this name right. So even when we're talking a Dijon Lee has familiarity with Damani Jackson. Well, Georgia just hired the former USC defensive backs coach, Dante Williams, and that guy can recruit his tail off. But one thing that works in Alabama's favor right now is that if Dijon Lee ever was to ask Damani, hey, what do you think about what happened at USC and what do you think about what happened at Alabama? Well, anybody that watched that interview knows Damani was like, USC, it's flash, but there wasn't substance. Now, I must be honest, I don't blame Dante Williams for that. I don't necessarily put the blame on his shoulders, right? Because when I look at that USC team, I think that speed defense, and we have Jake Merrill in the building who can talk more to this, that speed defense was terrible. It hadn't worked since 2013, Washington State. Jake, I don't know if I've ever gone through the history of Alex Grinch with you. Have I?
No.
Okay, this is fascinating. 2013, he's at Washington State, and the speed defense looks great. If I'm not mistaken, it came in at like number 28 in the nation, which if we're talking college football and scoring defense, listen, you can get some work done with the number 28 scoring defense in the nation. You got a good offense. You can win some bowl games. You can go to the college football playoffs. Hell, you can win a national championship. It's possible. Like I said earlier, you have to have at least a top 30 scoring defense if you want to be as in the bell curve, right?
That's right.
He goes from there to Ohio State. Jake, that defense fell off a cliff. Now, I know some people say, Ty, can you put the blame solely on Grinch? Yes. Why? I'm a jerk. 2, because the year before he got there, it was much better. Jake, he left and it vaulted into a top 15 defense in the nation. It went from like 89th to 15th.
That's right.
So I'm just putting puzzles together. He goes to OU. It gets incrementally better, a little bit better, a little bit better, but it never takes that next step. He goes to USC. It just doesn't work. So I don't know how much of it I can put on Dante Williams. I put a lot more of it on Grinch, but I think Damani Jackson in for a big year. Jake, how you doing this morning, my man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Is there a delay at all for you guys? Is everything working okay?
A little bit of a delay, but not too bad.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. Like I said, I got a new computer, so I'm still learning the tricks here. But yeah, I'm doing good, man. It's nice to be back. I jumped on obviously last night with you. A lot of fun, man. That was a great panel, and then obviously with Kyle this morning, so that was cool.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of fun last night. Lynn talking about USC says too many distractions to play football at USC. He should be more. I think you're 100% right, Lynn. And we talked about this last night, that it's so weird. I don't know whether we talked about this when we were live or whether it was before we were live in the green room. Next time, Merrill, hey, and I know you were setting everything up. You want to be there about 15 because we're in the green room and there's no filter in the green room. Right? So you got 6 or 7 guys that eat, sleep, breathe football. In the last night's case, 6. And 5 because and we're, unfiltered thoughts are coming out about football, about the Kendrick Lamar Drake beef. Oh, we got into that in the green room as well before we went live. And then we just transitioned. We just hit live and we're like, all right, let's do it. But I don't remember whether we were actually live or in the green room. Coach Jay made an interesting point. UCLA is better at garnering a fan base and packing out the stadium than USC is.
Yeah.
That's just wild to me. But Al Sanders says, Merrill, glad to see you back, bro. Back on, bro. Roll Tide.
Good to see you.
Bama boy concurring. Great
Love
to have
it,
Merrill
man.
back. Matty
Appreciate
P, another shout out to Merrill. Yeah, guys, I'm super excited to have Merrill back. I texted him yesterday, and it was a little last minute, but one thing you'll know about me is my streams are typically very last minute. It's always oh, well, who wants to join? Right? It's one of those. And we had a great time. Like I said earlier, guys, it was Coach Sean, Coach Jay, Coach Jake, Hayes Fawcett, Nino from Nino Sports Corner, and myself. 6-person panel talking SEC, talking college ball, and it was a great time. Now, Merrill, we were talking earlier, and I think today is a great day to kind of look at the transfer portal. One, because Jermaine in the house. Happy you're here, Jermaine.
What's up, man?
Right before I came on this morning, I recorded my content for the day. Thought I was going to record a 12 to 15-minute video. That didn't work. I look up and it's 23 minutes long, and I'm like, well, we're here, so we're going to send it because I think it's a good video. Who are you most excited about? Alabama took 14 additions via the transfer portal. Who are you most excited about offensively and defensively?
Ooh, man. I gave a list this morning just of 2 players from an offensive standpoint. And it's hard to say excited, right? Because who brings like the most value, but also who maybe brings the most electricity to watch. From the offensive standpoint, I don't know how much we can say we have electricity besides like Jeremy Bernard. We're not going to see a whole lot of Austin Mack, maybe in the next 2 years or so. But I mean, I would have to say I'm probably most excited for Parker Brailsford on the offensive side. I'm a big Parker Brailsford guy. In the end of the day, I just see him being such a key aspect. And you win in the trenches in the end of the day. And for that offense, the most important aspect of it is making sure the offensive line protects, and then is able to get to the second level, right, with the run block. So I'm excited from that aspect that Parker's there from the communication side of things to help really glue the offensive line together. I know last night some people had brought up like one of the best offensive lines in the nation could be potentially LSU's offensive line. I think, and I know that everyone's going to have their different opinions, I think it's going to be Alabama's. I think with Caden Proctor now coming back, right, who's fully bought in, okay, with your guards and Roberts and Booker, right, and then you have Parker calling the shots in the middle, and then who do we see on the other side? You know, do we see Pritchett? Do we see? I mean, gosh, there's a number of guys. I know. I forget how you say his last name. Ilna. Yeah, Oslinen. Yeah. Do we see him over there? That's another one. So for me, I think that's probably going to be the most exciting thing to watch. And how do these guys compete for that Joe Moore award? I think there's a goal there in that room. I think there's a lot of hunger in that room. There's a lot of chip on the shoulder in that room. And then you have the communication aspect that's there that allows these guys to work as one unit and really brings both sides together, right? In football, you win, especially on defense, but you win down the middle, right? Your strengths need to be down the middle. And so I love the fact that, you look at the offensive side, the strength in the middle is really, really pretty. I mean, we don't really hear a lot about the offensive side strength in the middle, but your offensive center, your quarterback, your running back, very impressive. Okay. Now we go to the defensive side. Now, again, the strength is in the middle. The strength is there on the defensive side. Let's be honest here. From our safeties to our linebackers to our defensive line, the strength is there. But who am I most excited for on defense? And that's a tough one because we could argue Damani Jackson, and I heard you talking about him. I am excited for Damani Jackson. I think he's going to be phenomenal. I'm excited for him. I already know he's going to be a very big impact player. Again, a guy with a chip on his shoulder, okay? But I think the next aspect of that is going to be who we just brought in Deshaun Jones. I like he's from Wake Forest. I get it. A lot of people are going to sit there and rag on the fact that, well, it's Wake Forest. Like, okay, but here's how it works in development, no matter where you're at, whether it's football or life. All right. No matter what you're doing, development works in a way that as long as you're continuing to push yourself to excellence, achieve perfection the best you can, have a positive attitude, work hard, right? And you have the talent level there in the mind to harness it all, because you need to have discipline. Then guess what? You are going to find success. And then on top of that, you have a controlled aggression in your thought process and how you attack the day and how you attack, whether it's your job, whether it's a workout, whether it's how you want to be the best parent, brother, sister, friend, family member, whatever it is. You get to develop that over time, just as from kids to adults, right? So it doesn't matter where you go and you play football. If you are attacking every day the same way and you are continuously learning to help improve your process to be the best you can be, then guess what? You are going to achieve that as long as you believe in yourself and you have that controlled aggression, whether it's, in the sports or in the other outside world. And I don't mean a controlled aggression like you're mean, but I'm saying like in your mindset of like going after those goals, going after what you believe you are and the ability and the value you have. And I think that's what Deshaun Jones has right now. You watch his gameplay. If you guys didn't see, I think it was a day ago, 247 Sports did a great interview with Courtney Morgan. If you haven't watched it, it's on YouTube. It was phenomenal listening to Courtney Morgan. And we've seen his interviews before, but this one, he talks a lot in this interview about different aspects, but he talks about like what they go after in the portal. Number one, they don't focus on the portal to bolster their roster. They focus on the portal for character. They focus on the portal for leadership. They focus on the portal for things that allow a team to come together and be a team. This is not a one-man show. You cannot go get a single player and have all this success. Look, LSU is a great example of that this last season. Okay. Jane Daniels was phenomenal. But did he make it to a national championship?
Didn't even make it to the playoffs and had one of the more stellar seasons.
That's right. You cannot win with a single amazing player just with the ball in your hands. This isn't, I mean, again, I talk about this a lot in different shows, and I bring him up a lot because it's the truth. But you look at Michael Jordan and we look at The Last Dance, even Michael Jordan talks about the pieces he needed to win. The single probably greatest achieving athlete, maybe besides Tom Brady, who Tom Brady had all the pieces and a process in place. But we look at Michael Jordan and what he did. He needed key players to win. And he talks about that. He will not sit there and take all that. Yes, was he a huge part of it? 100%. But he needed key players to win. And that's the idea is there has to be that buy-in. There has to be that mindset. And the fact that you go get guys like, you know what, King Mack, a great example of a baller, but they're not going to take him if he doesn't have the right mindset for Alabama and for the team. 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 Right? So King Mack, okay, they evaluated, they did what they needed to. He was a good pickup. And the same thing goes for Howard, right? So I think when you look at each of the guys they've brought in, every single one of them, they bring something unique, right? They bring something unique to the table that allows the team to be successful as a team. You need to do that, whether it's football, whether it's business, whether it's family. Everybody has to bring something to the table to be successful. And you have to do it in a way that you believe and that you love each other and that you do it for each other. This isn't the selfish game. Okay. That's what I love about the guys they brought in. So it's hard to pick one player from each. I think a lot of people was really, really worried about Parker not playing. I think Parker, and I said it earlier on the show with Kyle, I think Parker just needed a recharge of his batteries. I talked about the pressure of coming to Alabama as a player. You can take all that pressure, put it on your shoulders, you will fail. If you don't turn it into what you want to do and what you want Alabama to be for you and what the team is going after, right? If you put it all on your shoulders that I need to uphold this pressure, I need to hold this, you'll fail. Okay. Like I'll tell you right now, in the end of the day, sometimes that pressure can get to you and you just need to take a step back, recharge, think about it for a second, take a deep breath and attack it one step at a time. I think that's what Parker was doing on his end, whatever issues. Again, that's his speculation. I don't know for sure. And there could be more behind it, but he's not going anywhere. And I think that's perfect for him that he's able to do what he needed to do, recharge, and now he's going to come back in ready to go. And it's amazing to see Booker in an article talk about the support and the offensive line in general have the support for him. You know, I think that probably in all hands, like Brockmeyer had a great spring, but I think that probably was his, like, you know what, I've done everything I can here. Maybe I just need to go step somewhere else and try my best with something else at TCU, right? So yeah.
100%. And Brockermeyer, he's from that area, right? Like he grew up in the Fort Worth area. His brother's at TCU. I think his other brother is a GA at TCU. So, you know, dad, family right down the road, both brothers at TCU. That was the worst kept secret in all of college football once he hit the portal, in my opinion. And good for him, right? Like, no ill will. I hope he goes out there and balls out, because I agree with you, Merrill. I think that when we look at this, Alabama with Parker Brailsford is going to be just fine. Now, I also have my theory as to maybe why he wasn't available during spring. Once again, what I'm about to say, pure speculation. I'm an idiot. Okay? Pure speculation.
Come on, Jay, you're smart.
Well, I just wonder if, because he's transferring from Washington, if maybe it was a credit. Like, it might have just been as simple as like a credit didn't transfer, which prohibited him from being able to be there, which is why you originally saw him working out. And then you saw him not in gear because it was against the rules once everything. That's just my speculation. Right.
That's a good point, because that's a quarter school to a semester school.
Yes.
That's a great point. Great point.
Because Washington, I was looking at their law school. I don't know if y'all have ever seen that darn campus.
It's beautiful.
And Bama has a beautiful campus as well, right? I toured Bama's campus. It's beautiful. I believe it's a sister school to, I believe, University of Virginia in Charlottesville. I believe that's the same person who designed that campus did Alabama. If I'm not mistaken, I do remember taking the tour of Alabama and them saying something along that. But Washington's campus, guys, is unbelievable. I mean, it's beautiful. I was looking at law school there, but I didn't like how they sequestered the semesters into quarters as opposed to everywhere else. I was like, man, that's odd. And law school is already going to be a jump. It's like, I want as much familiarity as I can going to law school, as opposed to now learning how to be a law student, learning about this new. I didn't want that, right? But
yeah.
It's beautiful. But that's always been something, Jake, I've thought about. And I'm like, could it have been as simple as a transfer credit not clearing? He found out, and that's why the next time we saw him, he was in, workout clothes working out. But, it's against the rules for him to be That's always been my theory. Once again, guys, don't run with that and say, oh, so-and-so on Bama Football on YouTube with Kyle Henderson said it was a transfer. I have no idea. I'm just giving an opinion as like sitting back, reading tea leaves and being like, maybe it was as simple as a transfer credit, not clearing. And it's just that simple. DeBoer seems very confident that he will be there. I don't think he'd be that confident if Parker Brailsford wasn't going to be there. Now, I do want to unpack a little bit of what you said. And I want to start with when you were talking about the offensive side of the ball. You named Parker Brailsford. I completely agree there. Right. And it's funny. Like I said earlier, I made a video. And I asked everybody in the comments, once it comes out, you'll see it. Who are you most excited about? Well, I'll give you a little spoiler. As much as I said Jeremy Bernard is a correct answer and one that I think a lot of people will give you, I'm torn between Caden Proctor returning because he was an all SEC freshman, right? And I'm torn between Parker Brailsford. Now, one of the things you said that I love is that you win football in the middle. Jake, when you look at this, Tyler Booker, Parker Brailsford, I don't know why I have PB, that's dyslexia, and then Jaden Roberts. That's 3 of the top 10 graded interior offensive linemen in all of college football. On one line. Now, if Caden Proctor becomes the talent we all know he can be, you're talking about what will be 4 of the highest graded offensive linemen in all of college football. You then have Bertrand, Bertrand, I think it is. For a while, I thought it was Bertrand, but it's Bertrand.
Yep.
Who's 6'6", who will be competing with a Wilkin Formby and Elijah Pritchett at that right tackle position. You have talent. Now, another thing I love that you said was about like Cam Howard, right? And I talked about this in my video because I have this sixth sense, Jake, from doing content for so long. I already have a feeling if I put out a video, these are going to be the comments. So in my video, I'm like, I already know y'all are going to hop down, or not y'all, but some people are going to hop down and say, I don't know about Cam Howard. He came from Charlotte. He wasn't ranked. He was a 3-star. Ladies and gentlemen, the first cornerback drafted in the NFL came from Toledo.
Yeah.
And would you look at that? He was a 3-star. And even if you want to say, but Ty, it should have been Terry and Arnold, I'm not going to argue with you. I thought Kool-Aid should have been a first-round corner. But you know what we can't argue? That Quinyon Mitchell wasn't a first-round talent. So just it's not a predeterminant of success. Stars matter to a point. It's not the end-all be-all. That's a super nuanced conversation, Jake, I'd love to get into maybe in the back end of this.
Yeah.
I think that's a fascinating one. So I love your take on that. Now, defensively, I completely agree with you about Deshaun Jones, especially he in zone coverage. I mean, a monster. I mean, an absolute monster. And then King Mack. Listen, I'm excited about Keon Sabb. I think Keon Sabb will be a difference maker this year. I think when we look at 2025, King Mack is going to set the world on fire when he becomes the guy. Super rangy safety, has a 10,600 meter dash when he was in high school, isn't going to shy away from contact, comes from St. Thomas Aquinas. Do I need to say more about what they do from a high school level? I mean, goodness gracious. Like Jordan Battle came from St. Thomas Aquinas, didn't Dallas Turner? St. Thomas Aquinas, like unbelievable. So super intriguing stuff there, man. Super intriguing stuff there. Whenever you look at this, transitioning from the transfer portal, let's talk some freshmen, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that there's some true freshmen that we're going to see make an impact?
Oh, completely. I mean, you look at, and real quick to just touch on your point of the transfer DBs, I think what's really cool about it, right, and the way they went about that is they took guys for development. They took guys who are here for a minute, and I've seen that. I saw that at Washington too. Even with the guys they brought in, they weren't just going to grab a guy who's like an immediate impact player. Now, yeah, of course, there are guys who are immediate impact players, and I'm not trying to say that you're not looking at talent, but everybody wants to talk about how come we didn't get go after Cormy, right, or Cromani, right? And let's be honest, like it's very obvious based on everything that's been put out that there's probably some personality issues there, right? That don't mesh and maybe not necessarily team based. Okay. So
well, did you ever hear the story of when he came out of high school?
No, please.
So this is hilarious. To a point, right? It's hilarious that we have no bearing. We're just analysts, right? So he was all set, right, to early enroll and sign early during the early signing period with Miami.
Yeah.
The coaching staff of Miami shows up to his high school, everything. They got a cake waiting, for him to do the signing. Well, guess who's not there, Jake? Cromani. He's in Boulder. Didn't say a word. They bring a cake. They bring everything. And Buddy ain't even there. And I always thought, I was like, that's hilarious because I'm going to use that to troll. But objectively speaking, that's kind of like a Buddy. Like, I don't mind that you flip. I don't care where you go.
Yeah.
He could have gone to Texas State and I'd have backed him up. But
100%.
Don't have them bring the cake and not tell them you ain't gonna be there. Like that was
these guys
wild. Roll Tide, Patty. We're gonna talk about this here in a bit. I've starred that. But we'll just for the sake of the flow of conversation, Jake. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get
no, you're good.
Continue.
You're good. That was funny, but we talk about that, and we talk about the guys who they're looking for and what they're going after, and that what it comes down to is that man, they really want guys that believe they're part of the program because they want to be there and they want to get better. And overall, they want to win and they want to do it as a team, right? And so I love each of the guys they've brought in. Everyone brings unique talent. From a development standpoint, they're there for a minute. It's not a one-hit wonder, right? They're there. They have time to not just do great things this year, right? Because I think we'll see some of the rotation, but also over the next year or two. So it's going to be a lot of fun there. Now, when we look at the freshmen, obviously, we jump on the offensive side of the ball real quick. Everyone's really excited for Ryan Williams. How much of a role does he take in this offense? That's yet to be seen, right? We'll see that as we enter in the fall ball. The guy's electric. The guy's done amazing things in high school. I'm just going to say that, though. He's done that in high school. So we got to now take away all the stuff that's been done already, and now we start fresh. Okay, it doesn't matter what type of publicity, what type of excitement you get. You still have to come in and compete and play at another level where everybody is good. Every single person is good. This is not just some little school either. You talented. I mean, there's 4 or 5 star guys all the way around. Take away the stars, there's talent everywhere. In college football, when you walk onto the field, everybody's talented. You don't go play college football because you're not talented, all right? Or you don't have athleticism. Everybody's good. Now, some guys pick up the game faster. Some guys develop from a body standpoint, from a speed standpoint, from a strength standpoint. And some guys just have that mentality of a dog, right? Hopefully everybody does, but that's not always the case. I'm excited to see what Ryan Williams does. I think he has a great mentality. I think he's already so just bought in and wants to be everything he can be. The pressure has not seemed too big for him. So I'm excited for Ryan Williams for sure. I think, Amani Jefferson, that's another one I'm very, very excited for. I think that guy's overall, watching his video and highlights and his play, I think his overall body control, the way he goes up after the ball, the way he uses his body, he is a little bigger too. So I think it's fun. He kind of reminds me a little bit in his play style of Rome Odunze. So it'll be fun to see him continue, or I guess get into fall ball and start doing work. And then you jump over, I guess, in the running back room, those young guys with Hill and remind me of the
Kevin
yeah, that's right. With Kevin, those guys have gotten a chance to now kind of be there a little bit and see these other 3 stud running backs in front of them. And what's cool about, I think, Alabama, and we've continued to see this, is the running backs. You go to Alabama, you really can truly say it's almost like RBU, right? It's running back university from that standpoint. I know there's a lot of schools who feel like they can say that, a lot of fans who can say that about their schools, but Alabama, you look at what they've turned out year
and
after
they can
year
be wrong.
after year. 100, because and it starts with what coach they have. I'm going to be honest with you. You look at Alabama, you look at the running backs coach, the guy is a stud, what he's been able to do, what he did at North Carolina. I mean, everywhere he's gone, what he's touched with the running back room has been phenomenal and amazing. So I'm excited for those young guys to be able to learn and see from the older guys such as Haynes and the others, just from a standpoint that they get to continue to grow. Right now, we jump on the defensive side of the ball, and this is going to be a unique one because you might not have as much time to observe, especially at cornerback, right, and even at safety potentially. I think our safeties feel pretty good as far as experience. I think where everybody's concerned is the depth. And I think, Lynn, you brought this up, and good to see you on here. I know I've seen a couple of guys in the comments as I go through. Like I said, I got a new computer, so I'm still working things out. But I'm learning as we go. But it's good to see everybody for sure, and I'm excited to be back with you guys. But that cornerback room, the depth, I think, is where the biggest concern is. The coaches obviously did feel that a little bit from a standpoint of how many cornerbacks they looked and wanted to go after, and tried to maybe pull in. I think it's interesting from this standpoint that cornerback is going to be the position that everybody's going to watch. They're going to see the development. I think it's going to be really, really big on Deshaun and Damani, right, to come and really prove like how well Coach Mo coaches, because I think that's a question mark. I think that's what we're seeing in recruiting right now. I can tell you that right away is I think we're seeing guys, because everyone's like, well, what we're doing great at linebacker, defensive line. Yeah, I think we'll see pull some guys in closer towards the end of recruiting. Offensive line, same thing. Offensive side of the ball, we're seeing a lot of big names. The question marks in recruiting that I feel like we have and what's going on is from a safety and a cornerback standpoint. And I think what it has a lot to do with is you have Coach Mo, right? And from the safeties coach standpoint, forgive me, I'm still drinking coffee, so I can't remember the name. But
Colin Hitchler.
Yeah, Coach Colin. Like from their standpoint right now, I think what you're running with is you have 2 guys who I feel like are proven, but I think to recruits, they want to see more proof in how and what they develop and what they turn out. That's, you look at LSU, was it Corey Raymond over there?
Yeah.
That's a big reason why they're grabbing dudes from a DB standpoint who are really good, and you're seeing a lot of DBs pay attention. Then you go to USC from a D-line standpoint, right, with what they did in bringing in Aaron Donald's coach and just using that excitement to bring in some of these D linemen at a higher ranking. So I do think that's a big thing that recruits pay attention to, is how quickly can you get me to the league? What's your history like of getting me to the league or getting guys to the league? So the DBs are going to be the one room that we're going to see the young guys need to shine. Don't get me wrong. I think there'll be bumps in the road, but this defense plays in favor of the defensive backs, right? This is a zone drop read type of defense. These guys get to play in their natural ability, so there's not as much concern or worry as far as blowing assignments. I think you have a lot of speed and a lot of talent there with Zay Mincy, Xavier Brown, right? I mean, Red Morgan obviously has shown that he can play, and he's picking this up very, very quick from a safety standpoint. And then Mbakwe, I think Jalen, I think him just alone with his overall athletic ability and his desire to win, is going to really prove, especially in fall camp when they start really going at it. I think when you're playing against this offense too, and I've talked about this before, is these guys are going to learn quickly play as this offense has been installed from a base standpoint, but the complexities, these guys are going to learn from playing against their own offense in fall ball going into the season. And it's going to help them really polish off some things, right? They're not going to be perfectly, set and ready to roll. But I will tell you this, these guys all stay and these guys all put the work in. It's a bummer that we see Peyton Woodyard leave. I truly, man, I think he could have really developed here, but hey, you know what? If the guy needs to do what he needs to do and wants to maybe be closer to home or has better in touch there, okay, understandable, like fair enough. And I wish him the best. But you see the guys who did stay and what they'll develop into with the coaching staff who's so dedicated to them. I think it's going to be really exciting. I'll tell you right now, I think the good news is from a coaching staff real quick is I do not see our DB coaches leaving anywhere anytime soon. I think they're going to be in place for a minute. I will say if the defense turns out the way Womack has done in the past with every defense being studly that he's gone to, then I don't know how long we'll have him at Alabama.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's interesting when we talk about Colin Hitchler specifically, right? Because Mo's coming from the head coach of Buffalo. Mo was the cornerback coach for the Dallas Cowboys, though.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So he has, and to me, that should be a major recruiting chip. It's like, hey,
you think,
okay,
yeah.
I also wonder if it's just still so early, right? Like, because you talk about like Corey Raymond.
Yep.
Recruits know Corey Raymond. Mo's coming from Buffalo, right? So it's not even like these 5-star recruits have been sitting down having conversations with him and now he just moves locations. He's having to establish relationships from ground zero. Now, Colin Hitchler is the one I'm super intrigued about because he was a top recruiter in the nation per 24/7 Sports. I think he's going to be just fine, but I also wonder, man, it's like you look at some of these schools, they've been recruiting these kids for 2-3 years. At Alabama, unless you've had Freddie Roach, unless you've had the running back coach after you, and you were 100% right about the running back coach. Not only did Ohio State try and grab him, Texas was looking to try and grab him. Several schools asked, and he turned them all down. Thank God.
Yep. Gillespie's a stud.
Yeah, Gillespie is unbelievable. I think right now that's kind of where Alabama is, where it's like when you look at the linebackers, I think it's super impressive, right? Like, I don't really have an answer as to why they have been so successful with linebacker recruiting.
Yeah.
Other than I think that like Womack is an infectious personality, and it's just some of these kids getting on. Yeah, 100%, Jimmy. Like, some of these coaches have been after these kids forever. Now, I wanted
Trust
to hit
me,
this.
I know.
Yeah.
8th grade. I got mine in 8th grade in Nebraska and Oregon.
Well, see, hey, my dad, if he was still around, he'd have loved to talk to you about that, and he'd have gotten after you for not going to Nebraska. But let's be honest, between you and me,
not Bo Pelini fan, man.
Oh God. See, those were the supplemental years of my youth of being a college football fan. So I had my mom, who is an Alabama fan, my dad, who was a Nebraska fan, and then Nebraska gets Bo Pelini. And my dad was always trying to convert me, and I was like, "There's no way in hell I'm rooting for Bo Pelini." Now, the coach before Bo, the famous one. Oh my God.
Oh, dude. Maybe, hey, chat, you guys can help us out on this. I can't believe we're
Eric Crouch coach.
Yeah. Yes, the famous, the all-time coach for Nebraska. I can't believe I'm forgetting this either. I had the articles and stuff too.
See, at least my excuse, Merrill, is I was 5. What's your excuse?
Yeah. I don't have a good one. It's Tom Osborne. Thank you. God, can't believe I forgot that.
Thank you so much, Osborne, Rocket. Man. This is why I know the undefeated is going to be good. But I did want to hit this comment right here from Roll Tide Patty. Roll Tide, I apologize, but like I said, sometimes when the conversation's rolling, you just let it go, and we'll always circle back and hit comments. That's what we're going to do right now. So, Roll Tide Patty, this is an open-ended question. She says, how do you think the new helmet communication system will impact the game, especially for Alabama and defense? I mean, listen, it's definitely going to help, right? I mean, I'm more excited about what it means offensively, because you have a guy in Jalen Milroe who, don't get me started on Bill O'Brien. I will absolutely bust a gasket up here. It's your job to teach Bill O'Brien, and you told him go be a wide receiver.
Yeah, man.
You just refuse to teach. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. And then he had Tommy Rees, and I've always said, Jake, was Tommy Rees good? No. Was he terrible? No. But I will give him this. I think Tommy Rees tried. I think he tried real hard. He never had a quarterback like Jalen Milroe. Dude is 32 years old, and instead of being able to bring over his offense, gets over here while he's still figuring out how to be an offensive coordinator, and has said, oh, by the way, you don't get to bring your offense. Here's our offense. And he didn't know what to do, right? Like, you saw times where it looked like he was picking it up. So I think for Jalen Milroe in particular, now you surround him with all of these great offensive coaches. Remember, we talked about this. Coach Shepard was the passing game coordinator. So he's the wide receivers coach. That dude understands how to be successful in the passing game. You have Nick Sheridan, who was a quarterback at Michigan. You have Kalen DeBoer, who has proven to be great with quarterbacks. You have Byron Ellis, who worked with Bailey Zappi at Western Kentucky and put up video game numbers over there. And if any of you don't know, I'm pointing to Kentucky right now, but how would you know that? That's dumb of me. But regardless, I think just being able to have that extra bit of communication for a quarterback that is now surrounded by offensive staff, I think that's going to be really intriguing. Now, Jimmy says, will the game change much, though, Ty? Only one player gets a headset on either side of the ball. I think this is a question, Jake, I'd love to hear from you. But when I look at this, thinking about Milroe in particular, I'm like, man, that's going to be so good for him. It's going to accelerate his learning. I mean, I'm so excited for him, man. I'm so excited for the whole team, the new staff. But Jake, take this question. Talk to us about offense, defense, and will the game change that much?
I think on the defensive side, maybe not as much. You already need to have the ability from a defensive standpoint to go through and know these play calls and these shifts or some packages or audibles, very, very, very clearly. And it's the middle linebacker or your Mike who's getting these calls in. And the only benefit I could see is that it comes in quicker, right? There's a little more understanding. Maybe, granted, it cuts off after a certain amount of time, but I do think that you can quickly, right, get these plays in and then maybe give a secondary play call a little faster. That could be beneficial on that standpoint. I'll say on the offensive side, I think this benefits certain offenses, right? If you have a quarterback who is a fast learner, or you have a offense that is very quick. I'm going to be honest, like a team like Washington, now Alabama, with their offense, a team like Oregon, the way they run their offense, how quickly they run their offense, this is where it becomes a dramatic advantage, just from the standpoint that you can get this play calling very, very fast. But on top of that, you can almost go through the reads, not each one in depth, but you can kind of give the quarterback a quick overview of what they potentially will see. There, I do think that communication is important, and I think it's going to be significant on the offensive side of the ball. I don't see it as significant on the defense, but it will still see some benefit for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I'm interested in this right here. Talk to us, Lynn Shaneyfelt. Great comment as always, Lynn. Happy you're here with us on this Tuesday morning. He says, to be honest, I feel better about our players who went and got out. I'm more worried about our defensive scheme. This defense will get tested with the run pass on the corner. I'm not a big fan of what I have seen. And then he goes on to say this defensive scheme has a history of not doing great because it gets attacked by putting the corners in an X. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I do get where you're coming from, Lynn, on this, because there is this disadvantage to the defense. I see it more from like the run game. You saw Michigan attack Washington that way this last season with how they utilize that pressure on the backside, and guys maybe overplaying the ball a little too much, or playing outside of their role and responsibility, right? It's very, very important from this defense that you really focus on doing your job. I know it's almost overused saying that, but this defense, man, it's a swarm D, and it's also all meant to flow together. Now, you're right with putting the corners on the X, and especially with us in the youth standpoint, with the corners being out there, I think that's going to be maybe one area where people will attack, will be tested really early, and we're going to see just how much these guys put work in, and how much our coaches have really been able to communicate and get it through their heads of fixing maybe some of the errors that we saw in spring, in A-Day, right? Some of the errors that we'll see maybe early on in fall ball. Now, again, we're not going to be perfect, but I also know that Womack, from a standpoint of how he coaches, what he's going to do, he's going to make sure the guys, though, are in positions to be as successful as they possibly can be. And he's not going to just say, okay, we're going to run this, you guys just figure it out, right? Like, hopefully you make the play, hopefully you don't. He's going to make sure, he's going to know where his strengths are on the defense and his weaknesses are. And if we watch Womack from a standpoint of how he's called defenses over the years, granted, I understand we're in the SEC and you're playing against some powerhouse offenses, and the talent level is way up, but the talent level is also way up on the defense right now too, because of what we have. If they feel very, very good right now about that defensive line, about, again, the front seven. I see a comment in here that someone said something about, Rich B, the front seven has to do work 100%. And in the end of the day, like, you have that line and that pressure with the unique blitzing package that Womack brings. That's where you take the pressure off the shoulders of the DBs a little bit, and where we find success. Those turnovers come from applying the pressure up front. And Womack does a very, very good job of that. That's why be honest with you, I watched, obviously, Washington all year, and I know some of you have in general, but so I kind of understand what this offense will somewhat look like. The running backs are going to be really, really exciting to watch, and it will be interesting to see who at the wide receiver gets hot, right? Because that's the way this offense works. It's based on who's getting hot, right? And then how
like
to put
Hensel.
them in. Yeah, 100. But I think from there, and that standpoint, right, defensive, that's where I'm excited to watch. I'm excited to see the defense do their thing. I'm excited to see the defense come out, and Womack just has this knack, man, and he has the tenacity, and you hear it in the way he speaks. If you listen to his interviews, if you listen to the players talk about him, his energy level, he holds himself accountable before he holds anyone else accountable. He believes that everything starts from a success standpoint with how he goes about his business, and that impacts the coaches within his defensive scheme and the players within his defense. Man, I'm going to tell you what, I that's where my confidence goes in the Womack. That's why I'm saying I don't think we'll see him here that long, because I think he's going to surprise everybody, even though the big concern, I think everyone in the SEC, everybody in college football is saying, well, I don't know if Alabama's defense is going to be what it used to be. Well, remember Womack's meeting with Saban. There's intermingled strategy there. There's great minds coming together from old success and traditional success to new innovative success, and bringing that together, communicating and formulating a plan. Man, you want to talk about a big bomb that goes off. That's exciting to watch, right? That's the part for me where I feel like, dang, dude, I can't wait to watch this defense play, because what Womack is about to do.
Yeah, 100%. Now, this is, Byron, I have a question for you, man, because I don't know anything about this, but Byron has this right here. He says, no way to keep fans from listening and communicating with the players' helmet radios with the $30 eBay ham radio that's been jailbroken. How do they mitigate that in the NFL? And that's not like a loaded question. I'm genuinely curious, because I have no idea about, listen, I'm technologically illiterate. I've said this before. I grew up on a horse ranch in the middle of the sticks. Didn't have internet consistently really until my senior year of high school. And even then it was the HughesNet. If I watched one too many football highlight videos, we didn't have internet for 24 hours, Jake. It was bad. And then my dad would come in there and stare at me, and he'd be like, "You did it again, didn't you?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I did." And so it was a whole. So I don't know any of this. So that's, Byron, understand that's not a loaded question. That's a genuine question, man. How do they go about mitigating this in the NFL? Because he continues on saying college frequencies are in the 46, whatever that is, and NFL 46 range, 46.4 range, very easy to communicate with. So I'm genuinely curious, like, how do they mitigate that in the NFL? Because I mean, an idiot like me didn't even think of that. So that's fascinating, though. That's really interesting. Jimmy says Womack handled Oklahoma State. And we have to remember this, Jake. Womack's defense has proven to be able to have at least some level of success in the SEC, because his daddy was in the SEC, Dave Womack.
100%.
Dave Womack and, Patterson are probably the fathers of what we understand now as the modern 4-2-5.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why I've always said I would love to get Denzel on here, my buddy who played for Patterson in his 4-2-5, to break down, like, hey, even though this y'all's is probably a little bit different than what I ran, I'm going to tell you this. If you could understand Gary Patterson's defense, there wasn't a defense out there that you couldn't understand. And I remember even Denzel telling me, he said, Ty, you don't understand, man. He's like, our defense is so complex. It's probably the third most complex defense in all of college football. And I said, well, who's 1 and 2? He says, Bama, Georgia. He said, because Georgia's is an offshoot of what Bama does. He said, but you don't understand how complicated that Nick Saban defense is. He's like, there's a reason why, the guys that come out of it are so successful. And he even told me he played with guys, because Denzel was on the Tennessee Titans, right? So he played with guys that came from Bama's defense. And he was like, you don't get it, man. They come in here and they're picking up NFL defenses like it's nothing, because once you've learned the Saban defense, he's like, there's not. And he said the Gary Patterson thing was much the same, right? Like, you get to the NFL and he's like, this isn't anything to pick up, because it's so. Now, I don't know if Womack's defense is like Gary Patterson's, where it's like, you got to be You got to be real cerebral to get that defense. I don't know if it's as complex, but I'd love to talk to Denzel about that. Little funny story, not about the defense, but just about Denzel when he first got to Tennessee. I'll never forget this, Jake. We were on the phone, we were talking. It was after his first camp, right? And he was like, hey, because he knew I was a Bama fan. He's like, so I tried to tackle Derrick Henry today. I said, how'd that go? He's like, well, he ran through 3 guys, like bust through the line, runs through them. And he's like, when I try and tackle him, of course I'm dying. He's like, he kneed me in the chest as I tried to tackle his legs, sent me flying. And Denzel's a physical dude, man, like as athletic of as a guy as I've ever seen in my life. And he's like, I eventually got him down. He's like, but that dude right there, I always remember asking him, I was like, so how's trying to tackle Derrick Henry? And the look he'd give you is like, yeah, good luck, right? Like aim for the ankles and pray is basically what he would tell me is you better try and tie his shoelaces together because he's going to bury you if not. Then he told me about him stiff arming people. And he was like, you don't understand, Ty. It's comical watching Derrick Henry just send people into the ether.
Dude, that guy's like a whole nother level, man, with Derrick Henry, dude. I mean, I played against like guys like, Marshawn Lynch, Jonathan Stewart. If you guys don't remember Jonathan Stewart from back in the day with Oregon, right? But I mean, he played ball in Washington. He holds like I think the all-time rushing record in Washington for yards, but and touchdowns. But yeah, so he just those guys are freaks, man, like just freaks of nature as far as strength. But then you look at a guy like Derrick Henry is unreal. It's kind of like his size he's so big, but he's also deceivingly fast. And where Adrian Peterson is probably the closest example I could give, from a standpoint, the guy that's taller, right, who's also strong. And then I see that comment with Lynn. I was actually going to address the radio thing too. And Lynn, I'm glad you brought this up. There's like channels, the way they can do the channels. Just from my past work, I know this. there are frequencies and things done within radio communication that can block out people from listening or tuning in or being able to communicate. I can promise that. So,
because I was
just from what I used to do.
I'm gonna get one of those $30 ham radios, and I'm gonna go to Jordan Hare, and I'm gonna cause all sorts of ruckus to pay. I'm just
you don't even need to do that to cause him to have issues, man.
Gosh, I mean, no, I will say this, man. If they get that offense down, and I know this is gonna hurt. This is gonna hurt. If that Hugh Freeze offense, if they get it down, it's dangerous. Like, there's no 2 ways around it. That Hugh Freeze offense is dangerous, but I just wonder, right? Like Cam Coleman. Did you get to watch Auburn's spring game, Jake? I don't think we've talked about that.
No, man, I didn't get to see them, but I've kept hearing about Cam Coleman, man.
Gosh. Yeah. I mean, he looks the part, right? Like, he looks like he's going to be impossible to keep off the field. I'm super excited about him. And it hurts me to say, I'm super excited about him, but you know me, man, I'm a college football fan. So even Auburn,
me too.
You get a guy like Cam Coleman, I'm going to be like, hey, I don't care if you are the biggest Auburn hater in the world. If you love college football at some level, man, be excited about him every game that's not Alabama. Then when he plays Alabama, it's like, oh, well, you're going to get put in a locker by Zay Mincy, right? Like,
somebody light him up.
Yeah. He's going to be a problem, man. He's going to be
he
will.
Problem. He will.
And what a receiving class.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm impressed.
Because you got, I mean, we've obviously talked about Ryan Williams. You got Rico Scott. You got Amari Jefferson. And I love what you said earlier about Amari Jefferson. I think Amari Jefferson, there's an argument. And it's crazy because I think he was still a top 150 player in the nation. Let me double check that while we're sitting here talking. I think he was still one of the most underrated prospects in the nation. We talked about this on the Bama Standard before I was over here. When he committed, he was 212 in the nation per the composite, number 35 wide receiver. Hey, listen, they do a great job. I know that they don't always get it right, but there's thousands and thousands and thousands of high school kids. You're never going to get it right when you have that large of a sample.
Well, that's what I was going to say, man. It's like, it's so difficult to like get spot on with recruiting. That's just hard. Like, I mean, in the end of the day, like being able to go, and I kind of said it last night when we were doing the panel, is being able to go and grade every single kid. Caleb, what's up, man? I see you in the chat. Caleb, this is his first year of marriage. I think, man, I hope it's working out for you, my brother. But yeah, to go and grade every single kid is really hard. I think today, I think what we're seeing a lot of the grading, and I could be wrong, but because I don't necessarily work in that world right now. I mean, I would love to. That'd be cool. But is getting how do you go and find the right kids to give the most deepest analyzation on or a breakdown on, right? From a recruiting standpoint, how do you truly rank your top 150, your top 200, your top 300? You think of all the kids who play college football. It's all kind of word of mouth, who you're seeing at camps, who trying to see what colleges are noticing who, and then that's where you're starting to spend the majority of your time, because it takes a lot of time to go find a diamond in the rough, right? Yeah. So that it's hard, and I just don't think maybe Amari got as much love as he should have from what I seen. But
and then it's also interesting. Have you gotten to check out Lotzier Brooks in the 2025 class?
Dude, he's a great example. Great, because he doesn't do a whole lot of camp stuff. I don't think he actually does any camp stuff.
I think he doesn't do social media a month ago, and he lit it up. Like, I think he was in the running for camp MVP. I mean, he was unstoppable from my understanding.
Well, but all you got to do, I mean, who's a great example of that is the quarterback, and this is outside of the receiver, but Russell, right? The guy that Alabama's targeting
hardcore. From Duncanville. Hey, he's right down the street from where I sit.
Great. All you have to do is look at the guy's resume, right? Of seeing what he's won, what he's done against competition. He's not someone out there who's all just social media king, right? And that's how Brooks is. I love guys like that. Those dudes make huge differences in programs. You want to know why? They come in and set the tone with their work ethic, because they let their notice, they let their fame come from doing the work, from action, all about that action, boss. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what these guys are about. That's why I'm excited, man. I really hope they get Russell, and I love Brooks, man.
Ronnie, no, not at all. I am probably, I struggle even taking ibuprofen. Right? Like, I am, it's bad, Jake. It's bad. I struggle taking ibuprofen. Why I talk so fast, after this is done, go on YouTube and look up CX debate spreading. And in CX debate, which is the type of debate I started doing in high school, I made the team at my high school after I had so many surgeries and I couldn't play sports. In CX, you have 9 minutes to make an argument, right? And so one of the things people do is called spreading, and it's talking unbelievably fast. It's terrible. It's awful. After I started doing moot court, I was like, this is terrible for communication. But ever since then, I picked up this habit of speaking very quickly. And when I would be doing moot court in undergrad, my professor, who's one of the most brilliant people I've ever been around, she would have a water bottle with a spritz thing. And so every time I'd start talking fast, she'd walk up to me and like just spritz me and tell me to keep going, but slow it down. So when you get out of here, Ronnie, look up spreading in CX. And that's where it comes from, because unfortunately we made it to nationals and you have to spread, and it's just, you go and you might read CX debating. Yeah. You might have to read 15 pages in 9 minutes. And so how you practice it, Jake, it's interesting. You put a pin in your mouth.
Okay.
and you read your entire case with a pen in your mouth, and you keep going and going and going and doing it quicker and quicker and quicker. And then when you take the pen out, oh, it's incredible because you've worked the muscles to be able to like eloquate things very easily, and you can just zoom through. Oh, I know all the tips and tricks to get through it. That's why you'll also see me do the little pen. Oh, that's a bad example because I just messed it. But you'll always see me do the little pen flip. It's called the CX pen flip. People who did CX debate, they just they constantly are flipping the pen in there. And so yeah, it's a problem. At least, dude, I give you a lot of info in like 3 minutes, right? Come at me.
Hey, we're good with that. Jermaine just asked something. Let's see what Jermaine asked over here.
It says, Ty and Merrill, is it me or does it seem like DeBoer has turned this team into his image quicker than one would expect? It feels like this team is already. Oh yeah, I 100% agree, and I think it has to do with his authenticity.
100%. Yeah, it's funny because I think that's been brought up now a few times in different. If you guys didn't see, like, I know probably a lot of you have, but Bussin' with the Boys when they were in Alabama was awesome from the show and what they did. But they talk a lot about that. But also going back to that interview, I think it was just like it was released a day ago by the 247 Sports with Courtney Morgan. Courtney Morgan actually talks a lot about why he is even still with DeBoer, right? Because he is a Michigan guy, and leaving Michigan, what he was doing his job there in Michigan was something really hard. But the reason he says he leaves Michigan is because he really believed in DeBoer. He believed in his message. He loved who he was. He loved his sense of trust, of the standpoint of saying, all right, like, I believe in you. I think you can do this, and I trust you to do the job. And then on top of that, he talks about his humility. And you see that every single interview. Even Paul Feinbaum just said it about Kalen DeBoer. He goes, I can easily see why the guy's successful. He goes, he's hard not to like. And so I think when you look, not necessarily at bringing his image in, I think he just is himself, and it falls into place with not trying to be or live up to some Saban, image of, because that's what I think a lot of coaches would probably do is they come in here trying to be maybe a little more hardcore, and people are worried. They're like, well, isn't that what got us to win? Well, that foundation's already set within the mindset. And if you don't think DeBoer is a perfectionist, he is. I mean, there's stories talking about him, even in practice, running out to the field, the guy being a quarter inch off in his stance and correcting the guy off of that quarter inch because he is such a perfectionist. So it's not like he doesn't want perfection and excellence. I think just the way he goes about it, he is the perfect person to build on what already a strong foundation is in place. And he utilizes his relationship skills and his overall ability to mesh with all sorts of different people to capitalize on areas to continue to build strength, but also take in this philosophy. Because if you have something that's successful from a philosophy standpoint, don't change it, but also don't be scared to build within it. And that's what DeBoer does a really good job of. So.
Yeah, 100%. And Caleb, no disrespect taken, my man. No disrespect taken. I know we haven't seen Jake in a while, so I'm just as excited as you are. Now, there was a comment. Jimmy, your comment earlier, it got me. But I'm not putting it up there for obvious reasons. Jake, you can go back and find the comment. It's the one that made me laugh. But it's not getting screen time for obvious reasons once you see it. And Jimmy understands, right? Jimmy and I have an understanding. Jermaine says this fan base is bought in, and what was once let's prove we can win without Saban has turned into let's win for DeBoer and his respect. 100%. 100%. And I've said this before, Jake, and I love how you kind of just touched on it. But I would be concerned if we can make it a blanket statement. Jesus, Ronnie.
Oh, good old undefeated.
I love y'all, but I would have been concerned. We can take away the name DeBoer, and we can supplement any coach if they would have came in and tried to be Nick Saban. There's only one.
100.
How many assistants have we seen leave Alabama and they take with them the Saban blueprint? But the problem is they're like, oh, I have to be Saban, and it doesn't work. It's not because they can't coach their tail off. It's because you're not Nick Saban. And I'll tell you who else they're not. They're not Lynn. Lynn hopping down in here with the $30 super chat says, this super chat goes to you two guys. You two are always stay on point and talking ball, and I enjoy talking ball when I can get on. Kyle, thanks for putting together these two. Ty, trying to get to your channel. Hey, man, by all means, it's Around the Table Sports. Jake was on there last night, Lynn. We had a super panel of Coach Sean, Coach Jay, Coach Jake, Hayes Fawcett, and Nino from Nino Sport Corner, plus myself, talking football. We ended up going just about 2 hours, and that was my bad.
It was fun, though. I had a blast. I loved it.
I said, and I apologize to Hayes, too. We originally intended to go for an hour, and we got so deep into the weeds of multiple conversations. And, guys, it's great. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend going back and watching it, because you had, at one point, I wanted to have guys like Jake talk and Coach Sean and Coach Jay talk about their experience in recruiting relative to what we have now, right? And you have Hayes, who's, listen, Wilt Fong has an adjective, but I would argue there's nobody in the business that is more knowledgeable about what's happening in the background of transfer portal or recruiting than Hayes Fawcett. Like, there's nobody. Around the Table Sports, Len. Yep. Around the Table Sports. Terrible channel name. I know. I don't argue with it. I didn't think it'd blow up. I didn't think the channel would get where it was. It was meant to be me making a reel, so hopefully somebody would hire me, and then the channel blew up, and here I am, right? That's Ty and I have a non-verbal agreement. Yeah, Jimmy, we do. We have an understanding, Jimmy. Jimmy is I love him, man. I will put it like this. If anybody ever comes cross in the undefeated, I have no doubt that Jimmy is going to bury them, right? It's just, it is what it is. But, Lynn, thank you very much. I always love getting to talk with Jake. That's why I had to get him on last night, right?
Yeah, unbelievable I love being back, man. We have a good time. Like, me and Ty, like, I absolutely love it. And Jermaine, I see your comment. You need a channel. I mean, maybe one day, but for now, man, I like getting on with these guys and chatting with you guys on the undefeated in the chat, and get on with Ty and Kyle, and maybe I'll jump on Coach Sean's new channel, see what he wants to do. But maybe Ty will. I don't know about this next Monday. I know we got something coming up for Monday, but if I jump back on with you on Monday, so
open invitation.
We'll see. But hey, man, I'm back here with Ty in the mornings, so that's cool. That's perfect.
Jay to Goat says, I caught the Tommy Reese spill and it made me absolutely sick. Hey, man, it's true. Yeah. He wasn't the worst. He wasn't great. He wasn't great. But I also think that, one, Saban identified him. He wanted to bring him in. And I think when you're that young, still trying to learn, well, I don't think he sucks, because his offense at Notre Dame was pretty darn good. Now, Bill O'Brien just refused to teach. There's no excuses for Bill O'Brien, but in life, Jay, there's also nuance. And we are nothing without nuance and context. And that's my job, is to wade through and find the nuance, to find the context. Jermaine says, Ty, what's up with the law firm symbol on your banner? I wish it was a law firm symbol. It would make a lot more sense. It's actually an anchor, Jermaine. And it's because I typed in like a bunch of stuff, and I made my own symbol for my channel back in 2020. And it was not good. But we haven't changed it.
I think it looks cool, man.
and now when everyone's like, why do you have an anchor? It's because I hold it down.
Yeah.
It's because I hold it down.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah, he does a great job of that, especially his link between Washington, Bama. That was always a phenomenal talking point.
Oh, man. Thanks, guys. That's nice.
Bill O'Brien. Your thoughts, Jake? That's my worst OC in Saban's era is Bill O'Brien.
I just didn't understand. Like, it's almost like you almost got lazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, I'm just trying to get to my next thing. You know, I can have the success here. Like, I just never liked his. In general, though, I've never been like a Bill O'Brien fan, even whether it was Penn State, whether it was Houston Texans. Like, I was never a Bill O'Brien guy, man. I just don't. You know, some people you're like really high on, you like their energy, even if they have a rough time, you're rooting for them. But Bill, you're just kind of like, damn, dude, like I just cannot buy into what you're selling. You know,
he would tell Bryce, "Hey, you set the protection, call the audible."
Yeah, figure it out, bro. I'm gonna have a drink.
Yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna go sit down over here. Do what you do.
Yeah.
Do what you do.
Yeah.
And listen, it probably made Bryce even more NFL ready, but not in a good way, right? Like not in a way that you would hope to, where you build him up. It was literally like, hey, you build the house. I'm not even going to give you the materials. Go get the materials, build the house. Even though I'm the contractor, I'm gonna sit here and read Time magazine. I don't know. It was perplexing. And then hearing him tell Milroe, like, but Bill O'Brien's the worst offensive coordinator in Alabama history, or under the Saban era, in my opinion. And it listen, if you're asking me, it is just, you have the greatest quarterback from a talent perspective, in my opinion, in Bryce Young. I mean, Bryce is sensational. I say this all the time. Jake, have you ever seen Harry Houdini and Bryce Young in the same room?
I mean, I think they're one and the same person, man.
Is it coincidence? I think not, right? The guy is a magician. He is an absolute magician. In the NFL, Jake, he does things like the pocket's collapsing. He puts his hand in the dirt and will spin around. And there was a play he had where it didn't end up in a completion, but for him to even be able to buy the time, it was like, how do you do this? Like, I've always said this, Jake, if he was 6'2", 215 pounds, we would have called him, not we, because I already say he's a generational talent.
Yeah.
Throw tomatoes at me if you must. I don't care. I hate tomatoes. Maybe a different fruit that I like more. Grapes, right? Grapes. I like grapes. But if he was 6'2", 220, Jake, right or wrong, every analyst out there would have said he was a generational quarterback the way they talked about Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, completely. Like the number one thing that came down with him was his size. Like everybody said the same thing. And sadly, you know, what's crazy is if he just would have had, if he just would have had an offensive coordinator that highlighted, obviously, I mean, it could, you're right. Maybe it was good for him from a standpoint that he did have to show off as much as he did. But if you just had an offensive coordinator that put him in better positions, you'd be talking about numbers that'd be unreal, you know, and he already did put up pretty amazing numbers. So it's good give and take. It's also a bummer, man. Patriot Life. What's up, man? What's going on, dude? I appreciate that. 100, man. Dynamic duo. Shout out to you guys. Dude, hey, it's good to be back. I saw you say what's up also last night. Adam, I saw you in here too, man, just a second ago, and a couple other guys. But yeah, I saw you on last night giving a shout out too. So Patriot Life, man, good to see you, dude. Like, cool, and appreciate the super chat, man. 100%. Always. It's cool seeing a lot of guys in here, like coming back on, and I'm glad you guys have enjoyed me in the past enough to want me to come back, and I have a lot of fun. You know, it's cool seeing Lynn, Adam, Patriot Life, Jermaine, Rich B. I mean, there's so many people in here. And it's great coming back in and seeing what's up. So, and talking with you guys. But going back to Bryce, I mean, I wish he didn't end up at, Carolina, but you know, it is what it is. God,
they might as well have me out there blocking for him. At least I'd pick someone's kneecap.
Man, rough, dude, rough. But Rich B. Merrill went full. Hey, man. sometimes you just got to go do some stuff. And like I said, I just Rich BSC, he said it went full squatch on us and disappeared, man. Hey, I just had to go handle some things. Now I'm back and we're good. So it's awesome, man. And but Ty, you got bars, dude.
Yeah, listen. Well, you remember last night. Oh, I don't know if you were in there. I accidentally made a rhyme, and I was like, "Hey, Kendrick, if you ever listen, you need really Drake. If you need another ghostwriter, my man, I can be ghostwriter number 87. You know what I mean?
I like
So
it.
it is what it is, right? It is what it is. I'll contribute. Put pen to paper. It'll be a good time. It'll be a great time. But I want to hit this right here as we're winding down. How you two feel about Wisconsin game being scheduled at 11? I'm going to that game, but I may not have tickets if I had known if it was going to be an 11 game. I hate it. See, I don't know, man. And this is where I'm probably super out of touch, Jake. I'm of the mindset it's like, okay, we play when we play. Right? Like, I don't know. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's tough, man. Like so a lot of people brought up who just brought up the fact of Coach Sean did, and Coach Jay brought it up last night after your show, Ty, when we were all on the panel. They brought up that it was done. They feel like it's like purposefully done, similar to what was it, the Texas game last season. So they felt like that was like a mindset thing. I'm going to be straight with you. It sucks. 11 a.m. is early as hell for a game, number one, in college. Like, I wish they were played, granted, depending on where you're at. Like, if it's a hot state, Arizona, those have to be played in the evening, depending on the time of the year, right? I don't know if Florida's that way, some. I don't know as far as when it's real warm, but 11 a.m. What really sucks is mainly for like the fans, right? Because you're getting up and you're doing what, day drinking, and then you're going to fall asleep by like 3 p.m. after the game's over.
Just chain cigars.
The tailgate sucks.
I got a whole Tupperware over down here filled with cigars. Just chain them, man.
Dude,
grab you some Padrones and go to town.
Yeah, I get that. As long as it depends on how much you drank and what you mixed. Because if you're pumping down a cigar, I don't know how fast your world's going to be spinning afterwards. But it's all good. It's all
grab
good.
You a Dr. Pepper, grab you a cigar, and enjoy. The day.
but yeah, 100%. Like, I think from the traveling aspect, from getting in place, and then just trying to enjoy the day, it sucks. Like, I mean, and you're right. Like, okay, so Lynn, you just said it.
It's a good point.
It sucks for fans when you travel Friday. I agree. It doesn't make it fun, and it's I think the next part too is for Bama. It even though it's an out of league game and supposed to be kind of one of the unique type of scheduled games, it's still a big game. So that's why I don't like it. You know what I'm saying? But because you talked about, isn't Georgia though playing Texas in Austin? You were talking about that last night.
Oh my God. I want to go to that game so bad. Like, Nino, a big Texas fan, bleeds orange on the panel last night. And this is a good point, Lynn, right? This is where I'm a little bit out of touch, is because I have to be by a computer at all times. It's crazy, Jake. You'd think doing what I do, doing what we do, I'd be at games all the time. But I can't because I have to be ready to turn on the camera the second the clock hits 0 and start talking about it.
Yep.
And so I haven't gone to a college since I've been doing this. I have not gone to a college football game. I just don't have time, and it sucks.
It does suck, man, because the atmosphere is so fun. Like college football atmosphere. Yeah, and it's great as a player. Your mind's in like kind of like it's fun, but you're really focused. When you're done playing, as a fan, and you get to appreciate from the fan standpoint, that's where the fun is, man. Like, oh my gosh, it is so fun. And it'd be cool to do it. That's why, ultimate goal, or how it would all work if in a perfect world, and you and me kind of discussed this, is doing like a podcast, and it'd be cool to roll to like do a podcast of a show at like a game, and then being able to go watch the game and then come back and talk about it afterwards, and being able to like bounce on different weekends to different places and talk about the games, right? Be super fun. I mean, shoot, that'd be the way to roll. It just takes a lot to do that. I mean,
let's pitch it.
We need resources. Who's willing to pay for it?
Let's pitch it. I got connects at 24/7 Sports. Let's pitch it.
Let's roll, dude. Oh man, we'd have a lot of fun. But
yeah. Ty does moto. You got a strong name there, Ty.
Dude.
A strong purposed name.
Yeah.
I know you come from a line of strong, purposeful individual. I say that to him every time he comments.
That's hilarious. Oh man.
Jimmy says the world's already spinning. I might as well join it. You're not wrong.
Man. That's a fact on a fact, dude.
Yeah, that's a good one. And yeah, like Jimmy says, I want to go see that Texas Georgia game so bad, like so bad. But
that'd be cool.
Austin's going to be packed, just like Patriot Life support of this channel is always packed. Gifting another 5 Bama Football on YouTube with Kyle Henderson memberships. Guys, if you are the recipient of one of those memberships, be sure to thank Patriot Life. Patriot Life, thank you so much for all you do. Your support does not go unnoticed. It's actually hard for me to put into words how much it means to me, because it allows Jake and I to sit here and ramble for hours on end about football. So thank you very much for that.
Yep. 100%.
Like I was going to say, Austin already, great city.
Yeah.
But it's gotten so big that the infrastructure didn't keep up, right? Like, so now, I mean, every time, because my wife and I, we go to San Antonio at least once a year. I don't know if you've ever been, Jake. San Antonio is my favorite Texas city. I love, like, you'll catch me in San Antonio in the most random times of the year, and I'm just walking around enjoying my day. I love it there.
I've heard that. I've never been to San Antonio. I've been to Austin. I mean, I visited when I was being recruited by Texas, but yeah. So I like Austin. I mean, Austin's great unique city. Though. It's unique. It's different.
It's a great city, but it has gotten, like, obviously because it's a great city, because Texas attracts industry, right? It has gotten so big, even since I was a kid, man. Like, when I was there, when I was in high school, it was already like known, like, oh, it's gonna be terrible traffic. Now you already know, anytime we're going to San Antonio, we have to plan for at least an hour to be stuck in Austin traffic, and it never fails. It doesn't matter if I plan to be there at the most obscure time of the day. You're stuck in traffic. So already the city is super packed, and I get it. Great city, super packed. It's going to be real packed because Georgia's in town. Who doesn't want to go see that game? Are you kidding me? Texas versus Georgia?
Man.
And then you have the F1 race.
Yeah.
Oh.
Chaos, man. Chaos. That's like in Seattle. For those who are from Seattle's traffic, like Washington's population isn't nearly as big as we get down south to other states, right? But it's centered on like the west side of this Cascade Mountain range. So everything is, majority of population is on the west side, right? And I'll tell you what, Seattle, if you try to go to an event, and like the Seahawks are playing, and maybe like, I don't know, they got some other event going on up there, or the Mariners are playing. It is chaos trying, because you got one single interstate, I-5. And like Joe Biden was just in town, and they shut down all of I-5 for good old Joe, to make sure he could find his way to wherever he was going. So I'm just kidding, guys. Don't worry. Nobody get upset on here. We're not going into that topic, but
it's a joke, people, and it's a funny one.
It's a joke, but yeah. So I mean, it just was, it's interesting, man. It sucks. It's like the traffic sucks. And then you talk about like traffic in Austin, like Tampa, dude. Tampa's another one that's just brutal. Florida in general.
Plus all the cruise ship traffic in Seattle.
Dude,
I've never been to Seattle. Like,
okay.
I've flown in and then flown out when I went to Alaska.
Oh, okay,
but never really just like been around. Been around a ton.
It's different now, for sure. It's not like what it used to be, but it's all good.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have been on here for quite some time. It is time for us to hop out of here. I'm hungry. My dog is scratching at the door because she demands her mid-morning scritches and walk.
Mm-hmm.
She is so spoiled, Jake. She is so unbelievably spoiled. But
what kind of dog is that?
She's an Amstaff, American Staffordshire Terrier.
Oh, dude, good dog, man. I'm a dog guy. I grew up. My family bred dogs when I was younger. They're like dude, I've had so many different dogs. It's not even funny, man.
Yeah,
not even funny.
She's awesome, right? She's an awesome dog. Terrible.
My uncle had a coyote.
Really?
Yeah, named Jethro.
That's cool.
Yeah, like legit. Right? Just it was born in his backyard, man. Coyote named Jethro. Like it's crazy as hell, but it's cool. I mean, something different for sure.
I had growing up in the country like I did, we had I've showed you my first dog. Did I ever show you the picture of the Longhorn? Shout out to Patriot Life with the $20. Back to work. Just dropped in to catch some quality content. You guys be good. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks, you so much for your support, Patriot Life.
Appreciate you.
Did I ever show you the picture of the Longhorn?
No, man. No. I got to see the picture of Longhorn, dude. Your first dog?
So yeah, he was basically like my first dog.
What was his name?
Son of a gun, because the first time I ever got to work with him, he tried to kill my dad and I, right? Like,
oh, dude, yes.
And so, we got to be where we had an understanding. But after he got older and after like he was more tame, my dad would always, anytime people came, because we had people coming from all over the world to see horses and stuff. Anytime people would come from like Germany, anytime people would come from, you name it, my dad would be like, hey, go unlock the gate. Because in Gainesville, Texas, man, there's a lot of people that are messing around. You get what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's cool. All right. Hey, whatever floats your boat, I guess.
Yeah, they're out there just messing around. So okay, I guess there's not a way to. I used to know Taylor and them. They showed me how to put the image in the tab, and now for whatever reason, it just doesn't do it anymore. I cannot, for the life of me, get it to
create a new tab, drop it, present. There's all the methods like crazy. You have to show me this picture though, man. Once you figure it out.
So I'm gonna be able to right now. We can. Let me make sure we have this.
When I was a kid, we lived in Montana for a little while, right? We had like 5 dogs. 5 dogs. And you don't even, besides one of them being a Rottweiler, the rest, you didn't even know what they were. But they were huge. And oh yeah. Yeah, dude.
So let me get
that
son of a gun. And so whenever we would have people from Germany, and my dad's the one on the left, right? So the thing stood about 5'10", 5'11" off the ground because my dad was 6'1". And when I say he's a cowboy, there's a show coming on HBO, King Rex.
Okay.
That ranch is right down the road from where I sit. I know all about everything that happened there. Cowboy Mafia is the book, but my dad knows the old timers. He trained horses for the 4.6s for a while, man. So he would go out for the chuck wagon 4.6s.
Yes.
But people would come from Germany and stuff, and he'd be like, go open the gate for him. Because like I said, as Jimmy says, that's methed up, right? In Gainesville, they're not messing around. So I would hop on the back of the Longhorn and go open the gate. And so these people from Germany, Czech Republic, Brazil, their first soiree into a Texas ranch would be seeing me in high school just on the back of son of a gun, riding him out there, opening the gate and going. And so he thought he was a horse because he grew up with the horses. So,
dude, that's badass.
And he came from Loomis Ranch, and Loomis Ranch, Jake, for a while, they had the Guinness Book of World Record for the biggest longhorns in the world. And my dad worked for Bob Loomis. It's how he became a Nebraska fan. This is crazy.
Oh,
my dad
That's
went
wild.
to Cornell. Went to Cornell.
Yeah.
Was a professor at UConn for a while, decided he didn't want to do that anymore. So he quit, moved into a trailer in Nebraska to start working on a horse ranch because he grew up on a dairy ranch. And ended up working for Bob Loomis out in Lincoln, Nebraska. And he always said there's nothing to do but go watch football games. So that's how he became a diehard Nebraska fan. And so then Bob, after my dad moves from Nebraska to Gainesville, Texas, Bob moves just down the road in Oklahoma, maybe 20, 30 minutes away. And Bob ends up raising longhorns. And so for my birthday, when I was in kindergarten, Bob calls my dad and he said, "Hey, bring Ty out. I got a present for him." We get on the four-wheelers. We go, and Bob's got thousands of acres in Oklahoma.
Yeah, okay.
And we hop off the four-wheelers, and there's all the baby longhorns out there. And he said, "Point." He said, "Whichever one you want. That's your birthday present." And so I pointed at this one, and he didn't have a name. We waited until he was weaned, right, until he was old enough to where he'd come. They brought him. He just had horns. We put him in the horse stall, and he turned and instantly charged my dad and I. Now, listen, at this point, I was like in the first grade.
Yeah.
And I'd already gotten used to cleaning horse stalls. My former roommate, PJ, he actually played cornerback for Pete Golding when Pete Golding was at UTSA. He was at the ranch with me even in high school, and a horse tried to kill me then. And he was like standing at the gate, and I was like, "Close the gate," because the horse started messing up. He closes it, and in his mind, he was my best man at the wedding, and he told the story at the wedding. He's like, "I thought I just killed my best friend." He's like, because he told me to close the gate so the horse wouldn't get out. I had to jump over. So he tried to kill us. So that's when I was like, "Dad, we're naming him Son of a Gun."
Dude, I like it, man. That thing's a beast.
Yeah,
that thing is a beast.
Listen, I got stories for days, man. Growing up on the ranch, it was. You ever see the Wild Thornberries, Jake?
Like is that no?
It's an animated show. It was around when I was a kid, so you know.
Oh yeah. No. I remember now. Yeah.
There was one of them, Donnie.
Yeah. Okay.
And he was like feral. That was me up until like a certain age. I would just run out the house in underwear, just like into the woods, just on a full sprint, trying to catch copperheads and all that. And yeah, it was a problem.
Dude, that's what we used to do. We used to go find rattlers, bro, and shoot them with the BB gun or the 22.
Yeah, the crocodile hunter did a number on me. It was bad.
Man, I love that guy. God, I wish he was back, dude. Missed that dude.
I know. I actually got a crazy story involving him as well, but I'll save that for another day. Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow.
Tomorrow. I'll tell the
tomorrow we'll do crocodile hunter. All right, you got it.
Until next time, Jake. A pleasure. Hope you join me tomorrow as well. You got an open invitation. Everybody in the Undefeated. Coach Sean will be on tonight. Coach Jay will be on tonight. You don't want to miss that. Great content coming to you all day long per Bama Football on YouTube with Kyle Henderson. And until next time, everybody, I want to introduce you all to the third member of our panel. I don't know what Maya is barking at, but she is not happy.
Dude, she's ready to bounce.
She's unhappy. I'm going to introduce you to the third member of the panel, the Spinning Wheel of Doom. And it spins.